Good evening, everyone. We are in the regular business meeting of the District of Squamish on May 16th. Welcome to the Squamish Nation Traditional Territory. It's an amended agenda in front of council, and if everyone is amenable, I will entertain a motion to adopt. Moved by Councillor Kent, seconded by Councillor Elliott. All those in favour? Opposed? Motion carries. Are there any notices of motion? Seeing none. Excuse me. We have two delegations. First up, 4-1, is Howe Sound Secondary School grant aid application, and we have Principal Pascuzzi. Welcome. Come up and come to the podium.
Good evening, and thank you for having me on the agenda for this meeting. I get to speak on behalf of Howe Sound Secondary with respect to request for a grant and aid to support us with our commencement ceremony that we have scheduled for Friday, June 16th. There's a couple of days on the other side of that. We will require the use of the leisure center, and in the contract I believe it's referred to as the dry slab, and also the Squamish Chief. I gather you've got this.
Yeah, and the black tusk of the.
Okay, and the total amount is $2,298.
We'll round it up to 2,300. Any questions for Principal Pascuzzi? Go ahead.
Well, not so much a question. I'm just happy to see Nick here. You know, he's been teaching in this town for so long, and I'm just such happy to see you in here, Nick. All four of my kids went to school with him as a vice principal and principal, and he's still hanging in there, raising the kids in our town. And so thank you for that. So I'll definitely support this motion.
You can't say no to Nick.
I agree that it's nice to have the school district in here, and I definitely support this, and I'll move the recommendation.
Moved by Councillor Chappell, seconded by Councillor Kent. And we didn't have it at the arena last year because we were putting the slab in, so nice to have you back.
I'm delighted to be back. So.
Great, I'll call the question. All those in favour? Opposed, if any? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, and thank you, Councillor Pryor, for those kind words. I really appreciate that.
It's true, Nick.
Like seeing all your children go through the system, and having you and Don being a big part of our pack as well.
Yeah, it was great.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, we give you all the credit for how wonderful Councillor Pryor's daughters are.
That's true. Yeah.
Thank you.
Have a safe grab.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Nick. Next up is our amended agenda. We have the Squamish Park Swim Club Society, a grant and aid application. Mr. Jevons.
Thanks. Thanks for having us on the agenda so late in the day. Thanks to Tim for facilitating that. And thanks for also approving the commencement stuff. My daughter graduates and has been our principal throughout her entire school career. He's moved with her from school to school. So, Pirates have been in that community for over 40 years. 17 of the Pirates were a parent-run youth swim club, not-for-profit. We hold a swim meet every year at Brennan Park. Brings about 300 swimmers from within the region up to Squamish. Many who come the day before and can stay in town. Historically, we've always had the fees waived. I think this goes back to the 80s and talking with Tim Hoskin. And then with the recent changes in the fees and charges by law, we just learned that we were going to be charged for the full use. This is a huge fundraiser for the club. It's our largest fundraiser of the year. And obviously, we're looking for a grant and aid for $2,177.05. So we can focus on releasing back to the kids.
Any questions for Mr. Jevons? Someone like to move the recommendation? Moved by Councillor Ray, seconded by Councillor Chappell. Happy to support this. Obviously, we want to make sure our youth groups and youth activity and sport groups are doing well. And
going forward, we'll get on the program in schedule. We just learned of this on Thursday, and our meet's on Sunday, May 28th. So
Great. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
thank you very much, and I'll invite you to come to the meet on the 28th if you want to see organized chaos.
I used to do swim all the time. Yeah. They organize chaos. Good luck, Pirates. Go Pirates.
Go Pirates.
Moving on, we have a proclamation for the National Missing Children's Month and Missing Children's Day. I'm happy to move that. Is there a seconder? By Councillor Chappelle. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. I think reading that, it was a little bit shocking, the number of children that go missing every year. That was a real dramatic number. So happy to make that proclamation. Next up, we have a suggested proclamation for Built Green Day. And if there's someone who'd like to move that, I'll move that. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Chappelle. I'll call the question. Did I call the question on the other one? Mm-hmm. Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Again, I think that's a really worthwhile thing to make people aware of the trend in building and trying to be more efficient and build better buildings for the future. So that's worthwhile, and I'm hoping we can make sure we're promoting both of these things on our social media and webpage. And we finally have a proclamation for Spark BC Access Awareness Day. Is there a mover? Moved by Councillor Elliott, seconded by Councillor Kent.
Can I make a suggestion?
Please.
I know that we've been trying to take some of our council meetings on the road. So this would be another area where to take council on a tour of our streets and buildings and simulate some of those physical limitations that people might encounter, so that we are also aware of it. Because I think this is a really important issue, and when you're able-bodied in every sense, you don't think about it, you take it for granted how easy it is to get.
We used to actually have races, and they put slippery mitts on, you know, and
Yeah.
you get really a sense of how challenging even an inch of cement can be. So I agree. I think maybe it's a little late in the game to try to get something comprehensively organized for this
This year,
awareness week.
yeah.
But I think actually going and experiencing our infrastructure from that point of view is really important.
A while back, I had given staff a form that was given by a researcher at Simon Fraser University who was doing research on accessible communities. And what it does is it collects community members, or it could be council, but a group of people that get out and have a specific form on access in the community to fill out that's evidence-based and that looks at different built forms in the community and isn't just is it accessible or not, and you take a wheelchair and go around the community for a day. It's a little bit more formalized, but it gives you a little bit more benchmarking and then lists the things that that are needed to be addressed in the community. We've spoken about this a bit, and I believe staff have the form, and if not, I can get another one. But I think it's a really good idea to formalize it and actually have some criteria to be looking at.
Thank you. Moving on in the agenda, we have, did I call a question? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Consideration of unscheduled public attendance. If there's anyone in the audience who has a matter of urgency that needs to come before council before the next council meeting? Don't see anybody. We don't have any public hearings, so moved on to our first timed item, which is now Community Planning Infrastructure 7A1 Development Variance Permit number 1263364 Mount Pleasant Road.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Jessie Fletcher. I'm a planner with the District of Squamish. This is a development variance permit application for relaxation of the interior side setback. The subject property is located on Manfram Road, northeast of West University and north of Green Creek. The subject lands are zoned University Housing 1, Area 1. The OCP designations are University Neighborhood and Greenway Corridors and Recreation. The proponent has applied to relax the interior side setback from 2.13 meters, 6.9 feet, to 0.96 meters, 3.14 feet, to accommodate a set of below-grade stairs. The variance was requested by the district on behalf of the owners to correct a staff error. Building permit 896.16 was issued by the District of Squamish for the proposed home on October 19, 2016. Construction of the home has begun, including the construction of the non-conforming stairs. For construction to continue, the applicant requires either a variance to the zoning bylaw or an amendment to the building permit, which would require the applicants to remove the non-conforming stairs. The DVP would permit the stairs, which occupy about 7% of the interior side setback area between the home and the property line, as shown by the red rectangle above. This is the photo of these stairs as they exist. Staff feel the intrusion is minimal, limited to about 5.8 square meters, and because the stairs are located at the rear of the building, the variance does not compromise the intent of the bylaw. Legislative and district processes for impeachment were followed for this application. Two comments opposing the proposed variance have been received. Comments include concerns for fire access, size of the variance requested, and concerns that moisture buildup in the stairs may require an additional structure intrusion into the setback to cover the stairs in the future. Upon quick review, the deputy fire chief did not foresee the affecting stairs as preventing access by emergency services. Staff note that the variance is limited to the proposed stairs, and the stairs are designed with a floor drain which would mitigate moisture buildup. A second comment speaks to a concern about building first, asking for permission later. Staff note that the intrusion was noted on the building plan submitted, but a variance was not requested. Staff did not catch the variance and a building permit was issued. Staff consider this an oversight as below-grade stairs are an allowable projection into the front, exterior side, and rear setbacks as per the zoning bylaw section 4.11b. Staff recommend that development variance permit number 1264334 Manclam Road be approved and that the mayor be authorized to execute the permit.
Great. I will go to questions from council, but this is a variance, a DVP process, so proponents and the member of the public will be given an opportunity to be heard to present written submissions respecting this bylaw. Variance section 2.21.5 minimum setbacks for principal buildings by reducing the interior side setback of the UH-1 zone from 2.13 meters to 0.96 meters. So just anyone in the who wants to speak this, please just put your hand up and I'll make sure. But before I go there, I'll just see if there's any questions for clarification purposes from council. See any? Councilor Pryor?
I'm just reading the two letters. And, you know, based on the aerial that I have, there is no adjoining neighbors at this point, right? Is that the only house there?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, because this must be a fairly up-to-date aerial here. So there's no neighbor on either side to complain. Someone across the street doesn't like it, but I don't see any neighbors adjoining it. I assume,
You asking a question?
yeah, I
What's
don't
your
see
question?
any, so I'm assuming there's no neighbors on,
And it's been answered, there's no
yeah.
neighbors.
And-
Where the neighbors?
There's
Okay.
Oh, right
houses.
beside-
Can you
oh, okay.
clarify where the neighbors are?
There's no home constructed to the northeast of the property where the stairs are joined, I believe.
Just
it's
to the
under-
south of the property.
Maybe I can clarify that. We have-
What, can you hold on a moment?
Sure.
Can we just get clarity on where the homes are built around the property?
I believe certain lots are under construction.
Okay, when we go to the public, we'll clarify that.
This area is currently being developed, so both of these lots are currently under construction.
We'll get, once we go to the public, we'll get clarification on exactly where the neighbors are.
Well, on that, I mean, usually if one neighbor has a really steep lot at the back, so does the other neighbor. And I'm just curious, is it the neighbor that's being intruded upon needs stairs on theirs? You know, I mean, see, it doesn't really show the backyard there, and that's kind of where the rubber meets the road.
I believe these are stairs into the basement, is that correct?
Yes, they're below
They're not
here.
into the backyard, they're into the basement.
Oh, so they go down from here down into the basement, or it's from the other side?
The other side.
These are below grade stairs, so once the grades are brought up, they will drop down.
Okay.
Okay. Council, any more questions for clarification purposes?
Does the adjoining property have a basement as well?
Well, if the adjoining property's here, they can maybe speak to that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions from council? I saw a hand over here and then a hand at the back. Please come up and state your name and your address and,
So I'm the
Yeah.
homeowner of the.
great, yeah, come on up.
Okay, my name is Asunta McCullough, and I'm the homeowner, one of the homeowner.
That's okay.
Take your time.
Good evening. I'm really nervous. I'm mostly going to read this, okay? So sorry about that. So we're new residents to Squamish, but my husband's company is located here. He's been working here for 8 years. We hired a local designer, Jamie Martin, and a local builder, Steve Dixon, to design and build our house. They both have outstanding reputations. And to the best of our knowledge, everything was built within the bylaws. The stairs are below ground. They lead to our mechanical room. It's the only entrance to our mechanical room where our furnace is located. They've almost been completely installed, so it would be quite an expense for us to remove them. They were on the plans and we submitted them to the district, and the district approved our plans. The first time we heard our stairs were not permitted was when our neighbor reported them to the district. Clearly, this was an oversight of our designer, and then next again by the district. We are in no way trying to disregard the district's bylaws. We never had a conversation with Jamie or Steve trying to just get away with something, put them in. That was not our intention. We have reached out to our neighbors to try to address some of their concerns. We have email chains here if you're interested. If not, that's fine. We were advised by our builder that we do not need to do any further engineering of our stairs for anything they're going to build on their lot. And our builder did speak to the geotechnical engineer and assured us that our stairs were built to code and there should be no further engineering required.
Thank you. Please come on up and state your name and your address and if you represent yourself, a business or organization.
Hi, good evening. My name is Jim Saunders. We're the property owners of 3372 Manpan, which is next door on the side. It's just on the left of the photograph. So yes, indeed, we did find out about this intrusion when we saw the construction, and immediately highlighted it originally to Stephen Dixon because he was building our house as well, and asked if we could get the plans sent over so that we could understand the difference in elevations, and that request went unanswered. We asked in total 8 times to receive the plans. We finally got the plans when we received the notice for variation date. So it meant that we were not able to submit the plans to our engineer and have them assess where the stairs were relative to our basement, where they would be relative to our retaining wall. The original survey indicates that our property is 6 feet above their property. So there's been some soil removed from our property without our permission, that's been used to backfill the house next door, so you get that nice over to the house. So it looks like it's flattening out, but in reality, our property is about 6 feet above the neighbor's property. So it means that there will need to be some form of retaining wall, and so we needed the information in order that we can have our backyard design. And originally we made the request for the information March 22nd, and we've been held up ever since. Councilor Pryor's question about how they started, well, no, because we were about to get started that week, and we did not start now because we could not locate where the stairs were going to be and what their elevations were going to be on their property. So it's been a big source of frustration for us. Our concern is mostly about lack of information. We want to give the information to the engineers so that the engineers can do their job. I'm a professional engineer, and every engineering project starts the same way. You you read the specifications, the requirements, the constraints on a project. And for the professionals involved in this to say that they weren't aware, they didn't know, they didn't think about it, it's professional misconduct in my opinion. And so that, I find that's what led us to make the comment that it's build first, big forgiveness later. And I fully can expect that the builder, that the owners may or may not have known about a particular bylaw. That's not their job, it's the job of the professionals. In Stephen Dixon's case, he was at a meeting with us about a year prior where we had suggested doing the same thing. And the architects and Stephen both said that's not permitted under Squamish bylaws. So Stephen's response to this, when I challenged him on it, was, I just built the plans. And my answer to that is, as the project manager, he's responsible for every aspect of that project. And he hasn't taken that, hasn't taken on that responsibility seriously. So, does it impact us? I don't know. Does it impact our cost? I don't know. Does it impact our structure? I don't know. And it's because of lack of information. So that's my submission on this. Thank you for listening.
Councillor Bryan.
Oh, before you go,
Come on back up.
so you haven't built your house yet?
We have not started yet because they were waiting to be able to finalize the engineering around our basement because of that.
And the lots aren't level. Yours is quite a bit higher than this one?
Ours is 6 feet high.
So this was with the same builder?
Was the same builder, but Stephen's
Not anymore.
to kind of mediate this. We had a conflict that he needed to
Yeah.
explain to
Well,
us.
From my, point of view, I mean, sometimes there's oversights on things, and in this case, it's not your neighbors,
Oh, correct.
I mean, and
I
so,
agree with that, but it's not the basis.
yeah, and so, I mean, I sympathize with that, but do you think you're gonna need a set of stairs going down that side? Would you
No.
like a set of stairs going down that
Hey,
side?
Ted, you can't.
No.
Well,
We have interior access to our
Yeah.
basement, so we don't need stairs. So I proposed that, there is another set of location where a set of stairs could go to access the mechanical room, which would not infringe on the boundary.
it's kinda late for that, though.
What
Yeah.
about the cost to building to re-engineering our?
Okay, I'm not gonna get into a back and forth between landowners and this. Our specific concern is whether or not the variance is something that council wants to give a variance to. So we're gonna focus on the variance. We realize there's likely some inter-neighbor issues that need to be resolved. Council has a couple options. They can approve it, they cannot approve it, they can defer it until such time as you get information that helps you make a determination if this really impacts your retaining wall or not. So, I mean, council has a few options here, just want to lay that out. Councilor, are there any questions at this point?
Well,
Yeah, go ahead, Councilor Schwartz.
I'm interested in that, in the idea of if a deferral of the decision making for you to make a decision on your retaining wall would help you out.
Yes, we would.
Hold that thought. Councilor
I have
Cannon?
a similar mind.
Yeah, we're still gonna give the public, we can defer it and just keep it open and come back, and the public portion is still open at that point. Councilor Ray.
It's a thrust question. How might it impact the retaining wall? I take it the property line is where that orange peg is?
No, that's 4 feet inside of the property line, so
Inside of yours or his?
inside of ours. So the distance between the concrete wall and the property line is
About 3
about 2
feet.
feet, 2 feet, 2 inches.
Well, they're 7-foot setbacks.
Okay.
Stairs are- Yeah, sorry, you're right. 3 foot,
Between
3
2 and 3
sorry.
feet is probably enough for Councilor Ray.
So the load on the retaining wall is dispersed horizontally on either side, right? So there could be impact on the strength of our retaining wall. There could be an impact on the requirements of the retaining wall. It was mentioned that the geotech was consulted. I asked Stephen to have the geotech put his name to that advice that geotech would not do that. So that's what raised my level of suspicion.
And is your,
Go ahead.
your intent to raise your lot by 6 feet before you build on it?
We don't know just yet. Somewhere between 4 to 6 feet to allow us to have a level back there based on the height of the, we don't, we just found out the height of their property when we received the documentation last week. So we're getting trying to get a design together for our backyard. So,
I just want to speak to that.
Yeah,
too.
yeah, you can't speak from the audience, you
Okay.
have to come up to the podium.
Okay. When we initially went on the one weekend to look at our lot and see what was developing there, that's when we noticed that the jut out was coming into the stairwell. So we spoke to Stephen, Jim phoned him when we were right on our lot, and we asked, okay, so what's the height of our property? And he said it's 495. What's the height of our neighbor's property? It's 489, so there's a 6 foot difference there. What's the extent of the jut out of the house into the setback? And he said nothing. He's like, oh, I'm gonna have to check into that. So what our concern has always been is that our builder was building both our place and our neighbor's place. He was telling us that there was a 6 foot difference between the height of our property as based on the survey and our neighbor's property as based on their survey. What we understand with the height of retaining wall, anything over 4 feet requires engineering. We were told our place was 6 feet higher than our neighbor. We understand there's an additional engineering and additional things that need to be looked at for that. And so then the concern becomes if we're supposed to have a 7 foot setback on either side of the property line for the weight of the retaining wall, and all of the water dispersal and everything like that. If we have that 7 feet, it's designed one way. If we don't have that 7 feet, we have to take into account that now we only have 3 feet versus 7 feet. And so what are the additional engineering requirements should we need to actually have a retaining wall that is 6 feet in height rather than 4?
Thank you. Mr. Glennis.
I just wanted to clarify that the intent of the setbacks in zoning bylaw are for privacy. They're not to hold back your neighbor's retaining walls. So that's why the recommendation from staff is supporting that, the variance request is because it's, in terms of privacy, it has no effect on, or has very minimal effect on the neighbor's property.
So
The bylaws
a retaining wall on one property doesn't have an effect on the
Not in terms of
neighboring
zoning
property?
bylaw setbacks, that's, the reason for zoning bylaw setbacks is for privacy. And in some cases, in other jurisdictions, below grade stairs are actually exempt from having to meet the setbacks.
Councillor Spillman, Councillor Perry.
Thanks. My question to staff is, how would, that is a variance to setback on their own property. A retaining wall on on the other property shouldn't impinge at all or have any effect at all on the existing property with variance. The difference of whether you can engineer a retaining wall would make no difference whatsoever because you cannot go into their property.
Oh, yes, we understand that, but we're just wanting to know because anytime you have, it's force dispersion, basically. You're coming with a load down and that force has to go somewhere. So the worry is that if the water and the land and everything comes down, that something is going to go onto and not drain properly off their lot into the stairwell. And so when we initially approached Stephen Dixon to try and get the information so that we could see if it was going to be a problem, we got nowhere. We spoke to our neighbors and asked them to please let Stephen give us the information. That ended up going nowhere. We tried again with Stephen. He then wrote us an email saying, it's between neighbors, you guys got to deal with it. We contacted our neighbors. We said, hey, love to meet you on a Sunday. They couldn't meet on a Sunday. We tried to meet on a Tuesday. They weren't able to meet on a Tuesday. And so we tried to get around some of this stuff, and it just has not been an easy process.
So, yeah, you can't do it from there. Yep, yeah, absolutely. Are you guys finished?
Maybe I have.
Yep, that's okay.
We are actually the only people that have emailed or contacted them, and that was, if you look at the email chain.
We don't actually need to know
Okay,
that.
you don't need to. The difference is, the problem is they're saying that there's a 6 foot difference in height, and there isn't. That's a preference of theirs. They have taken the highest elevation of their lot and decided to build on that and go straight up. when you walk up on the lot, we are totally level with each other. If I go over to the other neighbors, the way that it goes, there's a 3-foot drop off. We have a 3-foot rock stack to our neighbors. And that's what should be on their side of things. They're just deciding to build a 6-foot wall so that they can walk out on that. It has no, there isn't a 6-foot difference.
So that's their choice to be able
That's
to
their
do that. So maybe my question is, maybe it might be to the other group. Is your worry that should your retaining wall go in and cause the foundation on this outcropping crack or something, then might not be you guys, but some owner in the future will go, your retaining wall forced my stairs that got a variance to crack, you should pay for the repair of my stairs. Is that?
That's what the engineer has advised us.
And just so you know, there's a covenant on the whole development that you're only allowed a 1.2 meter retaining wall. So
Yeah,
the covenant's set there, so the 6 feet that they're asking for is not even actually.
It's not our concern actually.
No, I know it's not, I'm saying with the deferral of trying to figure out whatever they do on their side of the property has to be dealt with on their side of the property. Whatever is on my side of the property, you can't engineer a wall and use my setback as a way to disperse weight.
Councilor Bryan.
Yeah, that was kind of my point. So through to staff, I mean, I was interested that the one neighbor is worried about water going down the stairs of their neighbor. Did I hear that?
Yeah, well, we're just.
It was a question to the staff, is that what you heard?
Well, that's what I'm asking. I thought I heard that.
No, so when we initially saw this and knowing, like Stephen had told us, you're at 495, they're at 489. And so we knew that there was the difference. And so our concern has always been that we don't want to do something on our property that's going to impact their property. And so we wanted to have the information available to us. We were getting nowhere with getting the information available to us, so we actually could, get whatever it is that we needed for our property engineered and organized and designed so it could be built properly. So like, there's no intent to have water draining into their stairwell or anything like that. The whole intent is to get enough information so that we can design whatever we need to design and have it work properly.
You shouldn't have to be able to rely on your neighbor because you have a property line.
Oh yeah, we're not relying on the neighbor. We're just understanding the laws of physics, basically. It just, with the pressure and dispersion, things can happen. And we didn't know what the intent of the setback was, if it was to allow the copious amounts of water that we have here in Squamish to drain into the earth properly so that we don't have flooding. We didn't know if it was to manage some of the support for the retaining wall that goes down back through the back of that property, because there's the covenant where you go down into the river, so water has to be drained around through that area. So there's a number of different drainage factors that had to come into consideration. And so we just wanted to make sure that anything that we had in the design was going to actually be able to disperse the water and the pressure as required.
And that would be regardless of if there's any encroachment in the.
The one implication is if there's less area there, it may need to be designed in a different way to protect their property. And so the fact that it's there may increase the cost of our drainage and retaining wall. Because we've got less area to disperse the water, so we've got.
You have the exact same area to disperse your water, it's called on your property.
Well, but physics doesn't work that way though, right? The water will go where the water goes,
Yeah, so-
right? The water spreads out.
In speaking with the engineers that we've had looking at this, the concern has been sort of, as the pressure comes down and the load gets dispersed, what is it going to do? And you can manage for as much on the surface of your property, but it's what's down below, actually at like the sort of like the sub-level where the water drains through, and it's gonna go out onto both properties. It's gonna go down that slope at the back of the lot there. The water's gotta go somewhere, and it's just a matter of making sure that we understand sort of what the design has to be, so that we can design it so that there are no problems. And then, like, the engineers that we've been talking to have all said, like, you gotta be able to manage the water there.
Mr. Valencia.
I just wanted to emphasize what the mayor just said, that everybody has to manage their water on their property, and in some cases, people have to put in perimeter drains in order to drain the structures on the property, and this could include a retaining wall. But that's not the purpose of the setback. It's not a drainage area, it's a privacy area.
Thank you. Any more questions from council? Anyone else in the public would like to speak to this development variance permit? Council, what's your inclination, Councillor Reyes?
I'll move the staff recommendation. Second, I'll speak to it.
Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Reyes.
Thank you. So there were two objections raised to this. One is that it would, this is a case of build now, ask permission later. And we sometimes deal with those, and they are aggravations, but this is not one of those. And this happened through no fault of the proponents, through inadvertence of actually district staff, as it turns out, and possibly a contractor. So that I don't think applies. Listening to the concerns of the neighboring lot, it sounds more like an issue over when information might be given or should have been given. I actually drove up there to have a look at this because I couldn't believe that there was actually development up there. I hadn't been up in that area for a while and was quite amazed at the amount of construction and saw this. And it is at the moment level. If there's going to be, as an engineer, I'm not an engineer, and so I'm not going to give an opinion on the engineering of it. But I was a lawyer, and I can tell you that if there's water or issues on one property, they're dealt with on that property, as the mayor stated. And you intend to build a 6-foot retaining wall, a 4-foot retaining wall, or whatever the building scheme might allow you to build, that will be entirely the issue of that property owner changing the elevation of their property. It will not be an impact and not allowed to be an impact on the neighboring property. So from my view, there is no impact on this, the neighbors for this variance. And so I would support this motion.
Councillor Perrin.
Yeah, thanks. And, you know, sometimes oversights are made and, you know, we have to deal with those. If our staff makes a mistake or whatever, I mean, we support our staff. I would think that, you know, if you're worried about extra engineering costs, perhaps your nice neighbors will, when they're doing the grading and everything on their side, will allow the big compactor to go down in between the properties a little bit on their side as well, if you're worried about trying to support where they've excavated and it's not solid. If you guys agree to compact that whole area and
Can we focus on the variance permit, please?
well, it is. I'm just saying, you know, I mean, he's worried about extra cost because if the property's excavated to the property line, then there's no bearing there, and true. But it's still your problem. But if your neighbors are nice and you guys are nice and getting along and having barbecues, run your compactor over on his side 4 feet, and your engineer will be a lot happier.
Councillor Schwab.
Thanks. And in staff's defense, in most communities, the extension for below-grade stairs, it's easy to miss something like that when the majority of bylaws support below-grade stairs as an extension into your setback. So I'd also like to look at that bylaw, and maybe that's a bylaw that needs adjusting in order to accommodate square footage of buildings and below-grade stairs. In most areas in Squamish, we can't have below-grade, and if there are some areas that need to have that adjusted, that may be a bylaw that needs adjusting, and I'd like to see that maybe come back. If most communities are doing it one way, generally there's a good reason for it. So that definitely doesn't infringe on somebody's view. So yeah, I think as staff is, when we come back and make something work for me.
Councillor Kent.
I can support this variance. back and forth and get some of the information shared out. It might alleviate some of this concern right off the top, if you can see it that way.
Yeah, I think it's always concerning when we hear neighbor issues, because we want to be one big happy family and get along. But from the basis of the variance, I can support this. I appreciate that the neighbor wants some information so they can do some planning, but fundamentally, whatever they do in their property can't impact the neighbor's property regardless. So I can support the variance and hope the neighbors can communicate and enjoy each other's company. Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Next up, we have item 8A1. District of Squamish fees and charges bylaw number 2007 amendment bylaw 2538/2017. Whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Mayor Hatchman. We have before you today actually three relatively minor amendments to the fees and charges bylaw. We decided to bring them all together in a single presentation. So I'll be presenting two, and Devin will be presenting the third. First is the, and I am Chris Wickham, the Director of Engineering. The first up is a change to the fees for non-resident burials and cremation remains for the cemetery. We've had at the beginning of this year a sudden surge in both burials and reservations for burials. And we saw this spike all of a sudden. We haven't figured out which blog or article or group started talking to each other. But our theory is when we started looking into this, we discovered that we are the least expensive cemetery in the Lower Mainland area for non-residents. And so all of a sudden where you can see in the last 2 years out of 27 local burials and we had 5 non-resident, and all of a sudden we're equal. We are running short on space at the cemetery, and we'll have a capital project to expand and over-excavate the cemetery, I believe, next year. But in the meantime, we want to keep the service for our residents primarily, and so we are proposing to raise the fee to equal the just the average of the Lower Mainland burial fees. And that's the only slide I had on this one topic, so I don't know if you want to pause for questions on that one.
Yeah, we'll just do it one at a time. Talk
Okay.
about one.
So how do we define resident versus non-resident?
Within living within the district.
There's a lot of family plots, those that might not be living here anymore. How do we address those issues?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, like my question would be, for example, you know, if we had somebody who, you know, maybe they grew up here, and then they moved to Vancouver and had worked there, and would we consider them a non-resident, or, you know, perhaps an elderly person who needs to move into a care home 5 years, you know, before their death, are we also going to treat them as non-citizens?
So I guess the question is, how do other municipalities articulate?
And I believe in many cases the family is still here. It's often the family who is actually purchasing the plot in that case, and they're treated as a resident. I think staff do have some level of discretion, but it's also difficult to write into a bylaw sort of a robust test for ties to the district or what have you. So it's an excellent question.
No, Robin's going to look up sort of the definition of that. And I mean, I understand this is a taxpayer subsidized, the cemetery does not pay for this, this is subsidized by the taxpayers. So I understand this, and we have an issue of space right now that we're dealing with. But I do appreciate what Councillor Blackman Wolf is saying about people who have a real connection to here, who may not be living here the day that they die. And how do we make sure we're not alienating those people from this?
Well, I mean.
And Robin will get the definition there.
And one of the things that we may wish to do is perhaps advertise, because I see that there is also the reservation capability of reserving sites, and if we really, you know, if we're gonna go in this direction, maybe we need to advertise it to all current residents so that people know and can make that reservation, you know, and have that opportunity. Although that still doesn't address people who may have moved as of yesterday.
Ms. Arthurs, do you have?
I have the definition from the bylaw. Resident means a deceased person who resided in the district of Squamish at the time of their death, or a deceased mother, father, brother, sister, or children of a person residing in Squamish. So that means that if you have a family member and you reside here, they can also be buried, and that covers off the either a single spot or a niche or location in a family plot. And then non-resident is very simply defined as means any deceased person not covered under the interpretation of resident. And I think you maintain your resident status if you purchase a lot when you're a plot, when you're a resident, and then you move away for whatever purpose, even if it's purpose of care, elder care.
Councillor Stroh, Councillor Carr.
I find it difficult to deal with fees in the absence of the conversation of how we're going to deal with space. If we're going to continue giving out entire plots, and I know a lot of cemeteries in other areas have moved to just cremation in their district because of space, and we do not have endless amounts, and as our population expands, I wonder how we are going to deal with space. And if space is a commodity, then price has to address that, but then we also, you know, it has to be affordable to those that can afford it. I think it's a huge conversation, worthy of a committee of the whole discussion before we.
It is a huge conversation. It's not currently on our work plan, and that's a huge conversation. But we need to address the issue of fees for non-residents today, and that is a conversation for the future. It's a big one. This conversation has happened in the community. It will be big and it will be controversial, just so everyone's ready for it. But on the fees itself for non-resident.
So, in light of the lack of that conversation, I wonder if that's enough for non-residents. If that is still cheap and it's still land available. I mean, it's in comparison to that community, but that's their residence fees, and we're charging their residence fees for our land. Do we need to have a disincentive?
So, my understanding through the report is that the staff is suggesting we go up to what the average in the Lower Mainland is for non-resident in other municipal cemeteries.
Yes.
We can go higher than average if we really want to disincentivize it. Absolutely.
We don't have that, we have way worse land restrictions.
No, I mean, it's a question for council to consider, absolutely.
Thank you. Well, I have to say I've enjoyed the report. As I'm reading the report and I'm thinking, how much does it cost to bury someone? And so I see cemeteries and then it goes, oh, landfill. And I started with landfill. It's only $150 a ton. And then it goes on and on to the...
Stop it.
And then, oh, here it pops up down here. It's kind of amusing that you guys threw that in there.
That was unintentional, sir.
So,
I'm not sure of the point.
But it is an increase. What we're proposing is an increase from $1,700 to $5,400. And non-residents from $650 to $2,000. So that's
for cremating.
Yeah, so cremating. And so, yeah. Anyway, I'm okay with raising it. Just throw me in the sound.
I think there was a point and a question there, but I lost it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm okay raising it.
Okay, so this is one whole bylaw. So this is one piece of it. Let's try to finish this portion.
Okay,
You okay? Okay. Moving on.
Moving on to burials of a different kind, as Councillor Reid pointed out. Again, we find a large amount of asbestos, this non-drywall asbestos arriving at our landfill. 33 tons so far this year. We are regulated to only accept waste from the SLRD. However, that can be hard to prove. And we suspect that some of this is coming from elsewhere in the lower mainland. And so we are proposing that we would increase the fees from $150 to $250 a ton to be more in line with other landfills in the area in order to disincentivize people from making the drive up to our landfill.
So I generally understand the motivation, and I generally support it. I think it should cost to dispose of asbestos. My worry is, and maybe there's some suggestion on how we might mitigate this, is that people will throw it in the forest. And that's my worry, and I don't know if there's any way around those criminal acts, basically, in my opinion. But do we have a strategy, or do we have, I don't know, how can we make sure that doesn't happen?
That is always the fine line we walk. Every time we look at tipping fees, we always have that conversation about trying to drive correct behaviors as far as separating waste or not accepting other people's waste, but not having it end up in the woods. I think in this case that $250 per ton is still reasonable, and that often these are businesses who are removing asbestos and are hopefully more professional and won't end up throwing it at the end of a logging road. But that is always the balance that we try to strike, and we feel that we have in this case.
Thank you. Councillor Kent?
Is there no way we can ask for some sort of certificate that shows point of origin for these materials? If it's only supposed to come and they're only supposed to accept from SLRD, is there any way to make them provide us with some sort of point of origin?
We ask for, and there is paperwork that they fill out when they arrive, but we don't have any way of verifying that paperwork.
You know, it would be pretty easy to get around that.
And we do have individuals arrive who aren't from the SLRD and we turn them back. But in this case, where once people kind of get the idea that they can fudge the address for larger commercial waste like this, we believe that's what's happening.
And we're substantially lower than everybody else on this.
We are.
Yeah. Okay, unless there's a dissenting opinion, I'm going to move on.
No, I just, on Mayor Heinzman's point about people throwing it in the bushes, where do you take drywall with asbestos? This is asbestos, so this is the siding.
Yeah, so
people have the asbestos siding on their houses. You can take it up to the landfill and dump it. Usually you get a demo permit.
Are we proposing any fees changes for drywall with asbestos? At this point, there's no fee change for that?
Where works a meeting?
My point is on that one is that nobody takes drywall with asbestos, so if we try to stop things from going into it used to be you had to take it to Whistler, and now Whistler doesn't take it.
Now it's going to Vancouver.
If you're lucky, you can find, if you're lucky, you
So
can
we
find
don't
some.
take it?
We don't take it.
Do you want to take it?
I'm saying if you're worried about things getting thrown in the bush.
Okay, we're going to move on. Thank
Yes,
you.
I do want to take it.
Next.
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Devin Guest, and I am the Film and Event Manager here at the District of Squamish. In 2006, the Public Art Committee in the District of Squamish.
2016.
Thank you. Rewind. Worked together on the design and installation of the newly designed street banners that will be going up shortly, if not already up again for year 2. During the first set, there was a slight color variation caught from those that were initially approved, resulting in a second run of approximately 100 banners. In order to recover the cost of these banners that will never be used, the Public Art Committee is suggesting that the banners be sold at cost. Thus, you see here today. The cost would be approximately $45, not approximately $45. With a sales limit of 5 per person, there's approximately 100, 110 on a first come, first served basis. They will be for sale at Municipal Hall in Brennan Park, pending the week of May 22nd.
So the Public Art Committee actually initially suggested we sell them for profit, and Christine Matthews told us we couldn't. Maybe, could we have Christine tell us why? Just to explain why.
Thank you, Mayor Heinzman. I'm not sure if I said that, but,
told
but it
finance,
is true
sorry.
that the legislation requires that we justify all fees. We are not a for-profit organization, and all of our fees should be able to withstand a test of justification that we are incurring the cost that the fees recover.
Another thing, when we did this extra print run, it came out of the Public Art Committee budget, and so the Public Art Committee was wanted to ask council that it be put, monies came out of, so from the sale of this, be put back in the Public Art Committee budget. And we need a, yes.
You're probably just going to say.
I was going to say we need a council motion to do that specifically. Is that correct?
Yes, please. It's new revenue. It's not recognized in the budget. So to designate, to specifically designate it into a surplus, a resolution would help us. Thank you.
Council? Want to sell these banners? And we're okay if the money that was spent goes back to public art? Okay. Maybe we'll just entertain a motion that once this fees and charges bylaw is passed and these are sold, that the revenue go back to the Public Art Committee budget. We haven't, should we wait? Maybe we'll wait to do that after we actually approve the fees and charges bylaw. We're getting ahead of ourselves. Okay. Next.
Next, earlier this year, staff reported on the 2016 filming statistics. The feedback from council at the time was heard, and a review of the charges was undertaken to see where additional cost recovery items could be identified. This is the representing outcome of that. The first highlighted is a license adjustment request. More and more what staff are seeing is that with larger production companies, specifically with ownership out of the US, and given the litigious nature of our partners to the south, we have legal counsel requesting changes. As such, on my side, I need legal counsel to recommend whether or not we accept those changes. And so that would be a cost recovery mechanism for me. I'd be charging back the production for the time it takes for our legal counsel to comment on that. That's the first one. The second, you'll see on the map the proposed specific parking related charges. The first one, moving or aligning our 2-hour maximum to be at a higher price point than the purple all-day parking, and so that incentivizes both the film companies to only take picture-required parking, as well as moves us to the cost recovery model that the position that we've heard feedback from council. And then finally, public parking lots. attaching a $250 fee per day, as there isn't currently a fee associated with our public parking lots. And those are the 4 proposed filming fee changes.
Can I just give you an idea of what 50 meters is?
50 meters would be from the corner of,
How many parking stalls is 50 meters?
oh,
6.
yeah, yeah,
So I'm just trying to understand what that means. 6.
Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
Councillor Spell?
This is crazy cheap for the amount of disruption it causes businesses. We had film outside our clinic, everything, our handicap parking was gone, our patients could get in, they stopped people coming into the clinic. They told us they were gonna be there, but you know, to use up our downtown parking, it should be $100 a space throughout the district. And our parking lots, to use that amount of municipal space per day, $250 is nothing to using up that amount of public space for a day. And the amount of disruption it causes. Our downtown is our commercial area. You need to just, you know, like if they want to be there, they should pay to be there. And $100 per 50 meters, it should be $100 per space, and it should be $100 per space throughout the district.
Nick, can we explore the idea of the public parking lots a little bit more? I think there's certain public parking lots that we might just want to say, no, we don't lease that out, period.
absolutely. In order for me to, or in order for staff to recoup revenue potential, there needs to be a fee associated with the space. It doesn't mean that staff are going to use it as a production asset. It just means that that staff would like to attach a fee for the space.
But we could articulate that, no, we would not, for example, ever lease out the parking lot beside the Copper Club, for example.
Correct. And in the last year and a half, staff has chosen not to do so.
And maybe, I didn't mean to distract, but to comment on the cost, 100 per 50 versus 100 per parking stall.
Yes, already, $50 per 50 meters is well in line with a lot of the lower mainland, with the rest of the lower mainland municipalities that us as a film group collaborate in. We looked at fees across Coquitlam, Delta, Lavner, and all of our filming fees proposed fall well in line with those that we see across from the lower mainland. Council adopted these initial fees in 2015, and so it's really been a quick review from 2015 moving to 2017. There has not been a lot of changes.
Yeah, we ground truthed them for a while, now we're back with some recommended changes.
Yes. We don't have an alternative for parking. Our patients don't have an alternative for parking. We don't have handicap parking. So when the phone comes in and uses up all your parking in the whole region, as a business, it impacts my bottom line, it impacts the public's perception of film. And if we're not taking any revenue in from it, then that's an even worse public offense, you know, to not be able to communicate this revenue is going back to the district. But saying, oh, there's a few $100 going back to the district, while it's a revenue generating multi-million-dollar feature film that's staying at the space. You know, we had like, when they were stopping traffic and stopping public from coming into our clinic, and there was telephone poles dropping on cars outside our clinic, there was people leaning against the glass of the building. It's really disruptive to have film on our main street on a regular basis. And they came in afterwards, we gave them the feedback, but it still is to not be able to get your clients into your building because there's no parking, there has to be a cost. And $100 a parking space when you're talking about 10 or 15 parking spaces does not seem unreasonable.
Councillor Pryor?
Yeah, thanks. A couple of things. I'd like to turn the road in front of Sue's from purple to red. So it's only 2-hour parking and not all-day parking.
And that's not in this bylaw.
I know.
That's a
Well,
completely
just-
different conversation.
And then the other thing, about film, it is up to the individual owner to get money out of their disruption, so.
We just get a letter.
We're verging on conflict of
And
interest.
we,
here, Councillor Spelsa.
I think council should
For
have
all
a discussion
businesses.
sometime over how much we support. I mean, I support the film industry. I like the film industry here. If we're gonna support them, we're gonna support them. If we're not, we're gonna not. I mean, if you don't want them, then we should discuss that.
No, I just
Yeah,
think
okay, let's focus on the fees that are in front of us. Other policies about parking and stuff is a
Well,
different
I
conversation.
understand that the fees are only a number that staff want. It doesn't represent necessarily where everybody's parking. Like in the red zone, in the purple zone, lots of times they park down in the purple zone there in a row, put the little cones out, sometimes units, sometimes not. And they leave the cones out all day. But you just want a number for that, right?
To clarify, I suspect that through staff error, in the report, and I should have clarified, it read 2-hour max equals $100 per 50 meters per day.
2-hour max. 2-hour maximum parking.
I'm using the 2-hour maximum parking as a category.
Okay, so just to clarify, currently, in the current fees and charges bylaw, we charge $50 for 500 meters per day. That's in the current. Staff is proposing that we do 100 for 50 meters per day. So we're proposing to double it in the 2-hour zone.
Correct.
Councillor Chappelle is proposing it's not enough, it should be more. Okay. And actually, Susan's is in front of
I think
Councillor
it's
Chappelle's
relevant.
is actually a 2-hour parking
That's relevant, I just,
already.
fees are cheap.
My understanding when we set these fees up was to continuously improve on them. But my understanding, notwithstanding Councillor Chappelle's experience, many businesses find it quite lucrative to allow filming in front of their businesses, or they're compensated in addition to what we charge. Are we in line and with what's happening in the Lower Mainland that keeps us competitive?
Through you, Mayor, we are, and my apologies for not putting up the slide. I can provide the information to Mayor and Council that shows how we fall in line with Lower Mainland parking. Every jurisdiction is a little bit different from the way they name or classify things, but once you get down to kind of measuring it out on the street, everyone is within the $50 to $150 scale, and the 150 scale tends to lean more towards 100 meters, 500 meters, and not the 50-meter cap that we have proposed.
Now that you've been in the role for a while and had lots of experience, I know that you negotiate with the productions and you try and steer them in the direction that is least disruptive.
I do.
So my assumption here, and maybe you can tell me if that's true or not, is that you're aware of which business owners don't mind having filming in front of their properties and which ones do, and you would try and steer productions in that direction to ensure that there's less conflict, not more, in our high traffic areas.
Yes, absolutely. There's a level of oversight and management that Mayor and Council require of this position, and absolutely there's quite a serious amount of oversight taken in terms of looking at the parking and impact that productions are going to have in our downtown. Just anecdotally, we have seen much fewer productions using downtown Cleveland specifically this year than we did in 2016 and over 2015 as a statement.
Councillor Chappelle.
Cleveland and Victoria is regularly used, the downtown is regularly used for productions, as far as I can tell looking at my window. And I know
So-
many of the businesses in the downtown feel irritated by the fact that the district can rent out the space in front of our business, and the businesses are not compensated. So the least we can do is take in money for the taxpayers and be able to say, where you lease out each parking spot for a certain amount of money and take in income. When I tell people what our business fees are for film, they can't believe how cheap it is. You know, for productions that are earning a large amount of money, you know, none of our local businesses get the same incentives. So if these businesses want to come and use our municipal land, they should be paying adequate fees. I don't mind them there. Most of them are very respectful. They communicate well, but they take up our space for our customers. And the sidewalk outside my building is municipal space and can be leased out without my permission. So all I'm saying is that our fees and charges don't have to be in line. If we're a high value area and people want to be filming out there all the time, that Cleveland Avenue and the red areas, I don't mind about the peripheral areas, I don't mind the 50 meters, but I'd say that $100 expensive spots should be increased to $100 per space. Like the purple areas,
Okay, so,
just the revenue generated from the high income areas that impact our businesses should be higher.
I think everyone got the point.
Good.
I think everyone got the point. So we have 4 different changes in this bylaw, in the fees and charges bylaw. I'm wondering, just because people may have varying levels of support for each piece, if we could go through each one individually and then pass the whole bylaw as, would that be okay, Ms. Harkers?
Well, if there's amendments, we'd give it amended readings, or we would amend the bylaw to remove one of the schedules if council doesn't want to deal with it.
Yeah, no, I understand that, but I was going to go through and do each one of the 4 areas separately. Do people support the cemetery change? Put it to a vote. Do people support the landfill? Put it to vote. People support the arts? Put it to vote. Filming fees? Put it to vote. And then once we have clarity on what each of those pieces and council support will, as amended or not, move forward the whole bylaw. Just so people can have their voice on each one individually, because right now it's one bylaw change. Is that all right with council?
Can I ask one clarifying question, because it may impact my view on that $100, I may give it up. Are we supporting the position right now? We were originally going to find out whether our fees and bylaws for film supported having the film position.
No, we did get a preliminary report based on the first 9 months or something like that. And it didn't quite, but it was in the first year and it was a portion of a year. So I think we're coming up on about the year anniversary now, are we not?
When we reported at the beginning of 2017 that we brought in approximately $35,000 in revenue from filming fees in 2016. So
right,
that's a portion of the position.
Yeah, which wasn't a full year.
No, 2016 was a full year.
It was a full year?
2015 was
A portion of the year?
was a portion, 2.5 months approximately.
Yeah, that didn't include events, that's just film, and film is on it like this in terms of fees, so it might be 50 next year, it might be 15 the year following.
Correct.
And we're increasing the fees a little bit here, so we'll ideally see a bit more revenue.
Thanks. Yeah, and that's, I think we can bring in a little bit more in order to support the position that supports an industry that we don't do for any other industry in town.
That's not quite true. Councilor Race.
Yeah, my recollection on that is the position we would like to have supported. Filming is only a portion of the position, and there are other aspects to it. So just expecting filming to support entirely that position, I don't think was ever our goal as a council.
We no longer have live at Squamish. We don't have festivals. What percentage of job?
We are getting way off topic. Way off topic. We can get that back to
We're
another
looking at
committee
fees
meeting.
and bylaws for an industry.
We're looking at fees on one schedule for the film. One schedule.
A portion where we can raise it.
Councillor Elliott.
I really supported your idea of voting.
Yeah, we're gonna go there. Okay. So that's the entire report? We're good? Okay. So we'll just go up to the top again and I'll just put forward motions, and if there's a seconder, we can all vote on it. With regard to the cemetery, I'll make a recommendation that we increase our fees for non-resident as per the report. Moved by Mayor Heitzman, second by Councillor Schwell. Councillor Rock'n'Roll.
Yeah, and I can support that. Can I please make the suggestion though, that at the next opportunity, like maybe next time property taxes go out or fees, that we have a letter in there specifically on this issue to advise people of it so that they have options and are fully aware.
Yes.
It is worth noting, you mentioned the ability to reserve while you're still a resident, for example. And we did have, you saw a surge of, last year there were 18 plots. 6 of those were reservations for one family and one in one area. So that is the sort of thing that we'd like to promote.
Okay. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Secondly, the landfill, that we increase asbestos from 150 to 250. Moved by Councillor Ray, second by Councillor Elliott. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. 3, that we sell the overprint of the street banners to the cost of $45 each. Was that right?
Correct.
And that the revenue be put back in the public art committee budget. Moved by Councillor Elliott, second by Councillor Pryor. Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And finally, the filming increase for the legal fees be per actual costs, and street use for 2-hour parking restricted areas from 50 to 100 as per the staff recommendation, and public parking lots go from what is currently $0 to $250 per day. We didn't discuss that one very much, so I wouldn't be surprised if there's some conversation, but for the sake of having something to debate, I will move the motion. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Elliott. So on the filming, can you just give me a little bit more rationalization how 250 we came up for a parking lot? The parking lots vary in size dramatically, so.
Yes, simply put, we earlier in 2015, council passed the initial fees and charges for filming for $250 per park. Typically, there is a parking lot associated or attached to a park, and this was a simplifying way of creating revenue, a fee for a parcel of land when they weren't necessarily using the park.
Would it be easier or possible to just make it the exact same as the 2-hour and make it $100 per 50 meters? Or something like that?
Yeah.
$50 per 50 meters?
Yeah.
And just, because just some parking lots are, 30, 40 stalls, and some are 10 stalls, and just have a much more sort of area-based formula instead of just flat rate.
Yeah, that would lend to a sizable cost for parking lots associated with Brennan Park or any of our ball fields. Not a realm
I would support that, if we had some way to bring in a little bit more income there, I'd drop the idea of raising all the parking lot fees.
Do you want to
generate more income? I just want a little bit more income generated from
typically, productions measure themselves in the area that they require in linear feet, and so I think that's a really good fit for an industry that already kind of measures itself in the space it uses in a similar measurement.
So would you recommend that we, instead of using the $250 per day, do a $50 per 50 meter per day in public parking lots that aren't 2-hour parking? I don't know if we have any of those. Okay. Okay, anything else on this? Okay, I'll call the question on the filming. All those in favor with that change? Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, so on the bylaw, fees and charges bylaw as a whole, I'll move that, seconded by Councillor Chappell.
With that amendment?
With the amendment that was just made, yeah. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Are we on
Adoption, three.
adoption? On to 8B1, District of Squamish zoning bylaw, number 2020-2011 amendment bylaw, industrial use update, number 2523-2017, be adopted. Anything to add?
No, we got sign off from the Ministry of Transportation, so the bylaw can now be adopted.
Okay. Moved by Councillor Race, seconded by Councillor Kent. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Staff reports, Community Planning Infrastructure. Excuse me. That the District of Squamish zoning bylaw number 2020-2011 amendment bylaw 41601 Brennan Road number 2376 2015. And we're here to discuss alternate public hearing date. Wait. I'm on Brennan Road, alternate public hearing date.
Yes, so the applicant couldn't make the original proposed hearing date, and this was a date that worked for everybody. That's the reason.
So we're looking for June 27th now. That was amended in the agenda, correct? Okay.
Not June 13th?
No, the proponent can't make it. I'll call the question, or move Councillor Chappell, seconded by Councillor Pryor, that the public hearing for the Brennan Road development be June 27th held at the Squamish Senior Centre.
If I may, the reason that it's going to be at the senior center is we're very likely going to be tagging the waterfront landing public hearing on the same date, so we need a larger venue.
Okay. Sounds fun. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Application for agricultural land reserve exclusion for Lot 6 Harris Road.
Thanks, Mayor Heinzman. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Asia Philp, planner with the Community Planning and Infrastructure Department. Tonight I'm presenting an application to exclude Lot 6 off of Harris Road from the Agricultural Land Reserve. The site is located in the Garibaldi Estates neighborhood. It's on the northwest corner of Tantalus Road and Harris Road. It's located within the Agricultural Land Reserve. The lot is approximately 0.39 acres, so that's about 16,900 square feet, and it's currently vacant. To the north is a church, and there's townhouses beyond. To the south is a horse stable and vacant lands beyond. To the east is Tantalus Road and single-family residential development. And to the west is the parking lot for the church and Highway 99 beyond that. The OCP land use designation is residential neighborhoods. The current zoning is rural residential 2, RL2, and the site is located within a flood hazard area. The applicant has requested exclusion of the subject property from the Agricultural Land Reserve. As per the Agricultural Land Commission Act, an owner may apply to the Commission to have their land excluded from the Agricultural Land Reserve. However, the application may not proceed unless authorized by a resolution of the local government if the application applies to land that is zoned to permit agricultural use. The RL2 zone does permit agricultural use. Therefore, the applicant has submitted their application to the District of Squamish and is seeking a council resolution. Staff are not in support of the exclusion, as district policies do not support the loss of agricultural lands, and I will outline the rationale in the following slides. If the land is excluded, the applicant intends to apply to rezone the property from rural residential to RL2 to residential small lot, so RS3, to develop a 5-lot single-family subdivision, which is shown in the site plan here. And it's hard to see, but there's kind of 5 lots demarcated on the subject property. And the green outline is the agricultural land reserve boundary. The current OCP policy contains policy supporting and encouraging local food production. One of the key objectives of the current OCP is to promote and encourage local food production and agricultural opportunities. Also, the Squamish 2040 OCP update, which is currently in the discussion draft stage, contains a full section devoted to agriculture with an objective and supporting policies to protect, maximize, and enhance agricultural land resources within Squamish to support a robust and resilient food system. The supply of existing ALR land in the district of Squamish is low overall, and there is minimal agricultural lands within the developed urban areas of Squamish. As shown in the bright green on the map above, the only other ALR land that's south of the Cheakamus and Chikai rivers are those properties that are west of the main CN rail line between Amblepath and Eagle Run Drive. Small lot agriculture is becoming an increasingly viable business in BC. One local example in Squamish is the nutrient-dense farms business, which operates on 5 separate plots of land in Brackendale, as well as the Upper Squamish Valley. They grow a range of seasonal vegetables on a small, intensive scale. The subject property has small-scale farming potential in both the short and long term, and a viable agriculture business is possible. A portion of the church property to the north is also within the ALR, although it's unlikely in the short term. These 2 properties could eventually both be used for agriculture. There's also the horse stable to the south across Harris Road, and this has been operating since at least 1999. This application was posted to the district's Development Showcase webpage. The applicant posted ALR notification signage on the property and placed advertisements in the chief newspaper, and this was to meet the ALC notification requirements. To date, 2 public comments have been received. The first comment was in support of keeping the property within the ALR, and the second comment was concerned about the potential for residential development on the site. Staff also referred the application for exclusion to Squamish's Food Policy Council, and the council encouraged the district to keep the property within the ALR to support and improve our local food system. So staff recommend council not authorize the application for ALR exclusion on the basis of our official community plan policy, which supports local food production and agricultural opportunities. Further, the agricultural land reserve and our other agricultural lands within the district are in short supply. And finally, this site does have small-scale farming potential, which is an increasingly economically viable option in Squamish. And that concludes tonight's presentation.
Thank you. The proponent did initially ask to be as a delegation. I just said if they wanted to speak to the application, they could come up and speak. I'll just quickly go to council to see if there's any questions for clarifying purposes, and then we'll go to you. Councillor Reese, Councillor Chappell.
Thank you. Through the staff, what would the RL2 zoning permit to be built on property as is without any ALR change?
Yeah, so the RL2 allows single-family duplex as well as coach homes. So they could theoretically develop that site. I did check with the Agricultural Land Commission regulations, and they are silent on duplex. They only permit a single family, like a farm residence, as well as a secondary suite. So their regulations take precedence over ours. So I am assuming that if it came to development on the site, they would do a single family with a suite. And that
Suite
would be
or
the
coach house.
that would be the maximum residential potential of that property.
Councillor Chappell, then Councillor Craig.
Just wondering about the viability of putting, if it was a farm, you could have livestock, a full livestock farm on there, is that correct?
I believe that
Right next to
that
the
size probably wouldn't support livestock on there, but yeah. We have no regulations that kind of speak to the maximum number of animals you're permitted to
No,
have
we
as part
don't.
of the farming
You
operation.
could have a full-scale poultry farm on that lot in the middle of residence. You could have the farm in two regulations.
Thank you. Well, interesting comment. I never thought of that. So they could have pigs on that property?
Sheep, goats, hogs.
They could have any
chickens,
agriculture use, they could have horses,
Yeah,
they could
well, I mean,
have.
I never thought of that. In looking at the property and its location, and I understand our new food policy regulations and everything, because we just adopted those and trying to save agricultural land, and I supported all that, because I think that's a good thing. The other area where the horses are, is that agriculture as well?
Yes.
As well? And then the block right next to the fire hall, is that agricultural too?
No.
Oh, that one's not. And across from that, across the street, the big 10-acre piece, is that agricultural?
Can you bring the map up again?
Well, I'm just curious as to, I mean, I don't mind small scale, looking at this long-term stuff. I noticed the lots, 1/4 or so filled.
Is there a question for staff?
Pardon me?
Do you have a question?
I just wondered what taxes have been paid on this property? What have the people been paying in taxes? ALR taxes or residential taxes?
They pay our taxes.
They
Doesn't
would be
matter what,
paying-
go ahead.
Yeah, it would be a combination of the zoning and then the actual use of the lot, which is vacant, so I'm assuming it's being taxed at like a vacant residential rate.
Whatever the
But I'm
PC
not
assessment
sure.
is doing, it doesn't really matter if it's ALR or not, it would be
Well,
PC assessment.
I have some of an issue in taking a kind of iffy lot that someone's been paying $3,000 a year in taxes because it's residential for the last 20 years, and then, it's ALR, which should only be $150 a year in taxes. I'm just trying to determine.
If I can clarify, the taxes for farm businesses apply when you have a farm business on the property. So you have to show so much income from a farm business to PC assessment, and then you get the farm classification. It's an incentive for an empty piece of land to be used for agricultural purposes, because then you don't have to pay the taxes.
So if this piece of property did have
Yeah.
farming on it, they would have been
Yeah, if
taking,
you're doing it, you can't.
but that has nothing to do with ALR. You can get farm status and not be on ALR.
Yes.
Questions for clarification purposes, then we'll go to the proponent.
So the church was built on ALR land, and the riding area is not in ALR. What is the riding area zone?
It's partly ALR.
Where the
portion of it.
residence is ALR, but where the horse riding area is not a ALR, is that correct?
So the map here clarifies, so the portion in green is within the agricultural land reserve, and this
Right.
covers all of the subject property, a portion of the church property, and a portion of the riding stables property, as well as the road.
So just the residents of the riding stables, but the riding area, which is.
It's not just the residents.
I'm just
There's
looking at-
there's no residence on that horse property.
It's just a
Okay,
stable.
It's just the stables there. The buildings are, I'm looking at, are just the stables?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. And then the church, and the church land is in the ALR, and the parking is not in ALR. Thank you.
All right, please come up and state your name and your address, and if you represent yourself, a business or an organization, although we know you represent this property, so well.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. My name is Yesenka Patrick Filsko. I don't know if I can spell that right now.
That might be a good idea.
Jesenka, last name Petek-Ficka.
Thank you very much.
I'm with Petek Design Studio, and we have been engaged by the owner, who is my family, to look at how we can densify this property. By that time, we didn't know it belongs to the agricultural land reserve. We just found out later. So obviously, I'm here to speak in support of the exclusion. And as such, I need to play a devil's advocate and question the feasibility and probability profitable agricultural practice that would make sense given the high value of this land. This land has been valued, and this is from the BC assessment, that's over $700,000. So economically, I'm asking myself what kind of agricultural practice you have to have in order to sustain the mortgage payment and taxes and carrying costs, business costs. I'm sure there is a model of a business that might support the cost of this land in agricultural favor, and the buyer can be found or user can be found for such a farm and land, but I'm not sure how long this piece will continue sitting empty before such a buyer comes along. Also, on this sort of similar note, the staff has touched upon according to the zoning and according to the agricultural land reserve allowed usage, a house can be constructed. There is no, I guess, enforcement of the land being agricultural land reserve. It has to be farmed or used for their agricultural purposes. So I'm just questioning the likelihood of a buyer coming here and wanting to put a big house on a property, and how much benefit that would have for the community as opposed to having 5-lot, small lot houses that would contribute to the housing stock. We did go back and forth with the owner in terms of what scenarios this lot can support, and this was before, again, having known that this belongs to the agricultural land reserve, and given the neighborhood, we felt that lower density rezoning makes sense. EA 5 lots, 5 small lots, as opposed to duplex, a couple of duplex sites, or even something higher density mixed use like there's on the north and south of the campus. And I understand that the decision in front of you is kind of a tricky one with being supporting the agricultural as well as at the same time supporting the housing stock in the area. Also, I just want to kind of just answer the question that was put by Councilor Pryor about the taxes, and the owner did pay the residential rate taxes. And I would be happy to answer any questions.
How much did you say the assessment value was?
700, a little bit over 700.
I just looked at BC assessment, it said 570,000.
Oh, really? No,
Sorry.
Yeah, I thought it was assessed at 7, yeah. I'm pretty sure it was.
Yeah, no, this is before 2014 was $78,000 for assessment. This 2014 is 2015 is grading 4 something. In 2016, 5 something. I received is I think 698. close to $700,000 for exterior facing design. And it can increase from 78,000 to close to $700,000.
It's not what PC assessment says.
Yeah, sorry, when I went on there, it was 700 for.
Okay. Seems to be some confusion there. Thank you. Do you have anything else to add?
No, unless there are any questions that I need.
Any questions, council? Yes.
So the proposed, right now, someone could build a house on that property
With the secondaries.
with a secondary, so a house and a carriage house?
Yes.
And, you know, it's pretty much the same size as the two lots across the street.
And so just to clarify, we can't take something out of ALR. This goes to a recommendation to the ALC, Agricultural Land Commission, and they make the determination.
Yes, exactly.
We
So-
don't make the determination.
No, what we do is forward council's resolution to the Agricultural Land Commission, who takes that into consideration,
And they
along
make-
with all the other factors that they look at when considering whether to grant the final approval on the exclusion.
And
we
they-
have the opportunity to not even send it to the Agricultural Land Commission.
Right. And my understanding of the Agricultural Land Commission is they do take into consideration what councils say, particularly when we say do not take it out of the ALR. Very rarely, even if we do say take it out of the ALR or say we're okay with you taking it out there, do they actually approve that? The ALC tends to be very judicious when they take things out of the ALR. In my experience, I'm just saying that it really is in the hands of the ALC. Councilor Pryor.
Yeah, thank you. So, a house and a carriage house, or 6 little houses? Because if it goes out of the ALR, the opponent wants to put in 5 or 6 small houses.
So the applicant would need to apply for the rezoning,
Yeah.
so it would be council's decision whether
Yeah.
to grant the RS3 or whether they want to see something different on that property, if it's excluded.
So, I mean, I think the question is, well, I guess it's a little premature to say, would I be happy with 5 little houses on that property?
That's not the decision in front of us.
I know, but would I be happy with 1 house and 1 carriage house and maybe a business that, like, you could have a house and a carriage house and an agricultural business on there, whether it be selling somebody else's product, or you could have a store, you could have all sorts of things. No selling?
So.
You can sell,
the
per our bylaw, you can sell what you said, up to 70% of your product from your property.
Yeah, the ALC has very specific regulations about what you can and can't sell and what kind of business you could have there related to farming.
Yeah, it should be, they could put a farm use type business on there pretty readily. If they were doing something else, manufacturing or something, they'd have to apply to the ALC for non-farm use, and they either would get it or not. If they wanted to put a business other than farm use on there. Does that make sense? Okay. I'm seeing no more hands or questions. I'm going to recommend, or I'm going to move that we not support application to exclude from ALR. There's a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Elliott. Yes, Councillor Balcombe, do you have a question?
Comment.
Oh, okay, I'm going to comment.
You're gonna comment.
Yeah, we have precious little ALR lands in Squamish. I can see this piece being farmed quite readily, and I kind of like the idea of integrating some small plot farming. I think what Nutrient Farms is doing is fantastic in terms of using some of our larger lots to actually do production. So all of our policies are geared towards making sure that we don't lose these last remaining agricultural potential I highly doubt the ALR would actually consider excluding this, so that's, I guess, up to them. But from my point of view, I think this is something we need to keep within the ALR. Councillor Blackmore.
I'm actually not going to support the staff recommendation in this case, because I feel that in this particular circumstance, given the size of the site, given the location of the site, that a better use for it is indeed for residential development. And the reason I say that is because it's within our infrastructure service areas, and in terms of agricultural uses, I think we do have lands, even though they may not be designated as agricultural land reserve, there are lands that are more affordable because they are outside of our flood protection services and, up in the valley, those types of places where you can get large scale farming. And it's kind of interesting too that nutrient dense farms is actually being done on non-ALR land. It's being done in our residential neighborhoods. So I think that's great, and I think that will continue to happen. And so I just think that I would like to see, anytime we can add more housing in our existing developed areas, I think we need to take a look at it in this case. And given that it has not been used for farm use for quite some time, if ever, I'm comfortable with that. And you could also even see, as was mentioned earlier, perhaps this could be a good spot if the 5-lot thing is one option. The other option could even be a low-rise apartment complex as well. It's right on a bus route. So, but anyway, just on the ALR, I'm actually okay with supporting the exclusion of this from the ALR.
I am going to support the staff recommendation. I think that our current OCP policies around farm use, while they're there, they're weak, and I think through the work of the Food Policy Council and community engagement, they'll be stronger in this next OCP. I think through my sitting on the Food Policy Council, I know that people leasing residential lands for farms don't feel secure in that because those owners can move and sell their land, and then that lease disappears. So protecting even small lot ALR land where there's certainty that farm use is allowed there is really important. Other communities are embracing the idea of urban agriculture to showcase the ability to produce food even in an urban environment, and I think we also forget about the ability to go up, not just out. So for me, it's really important to keep this piece of land within the ALR.
Thanks. For the same reasons that Councilor Blackman-Wolf said, I'm really struggling with this because it's been vacant and not farmed since 1999. That's a long time, and the things that we want to see aren't necessarily the things that are going to be seen in residential neighborhoods. And I can't see things like poultry farms or, you can imagine a high-end use and a farm use for a piece of land that's really small like that. But it's surrounded by a parking lot, it's, in a church, and it's going to have either a large house and a carriage house and not be farmed at all and be a monster home, or we could separate it out into 5 lots. And on those 5 lots, you could have agricultural use as well. You can have agricultural use, as Councilor Blackman-Wolf said, in residential neighborhoods. So it's hard when you have a piece of land that's on the bus route in a residential neighborhood to say, and it's not really our decision. Us supporting it does not mean the ALR will remove it. And I feel that the highest and best use may be small lot housing on this lot. But because I say that doesn't mean it's going to be supported by the ALR. It still has to go to the ALR, and the decision will be made by people that have all the facts and viability on the farm use. And when I look at it, it's got invasive species on it, because you don't know why it hasn't been farmed. And if a farmer was going to look at it and it was available for sale why wouldn't have somebody picked it up for farming? I don't understand that. And you can have farming in commercial areas too now. There's all sorts of opportunities to grow food. It's not restricted to ALR land, and a lot of our ALR land isn't viable for farming because of soil conditions, because of a lot of different reasons. So I'd like to hear other comments from councillors. I'm still struggling with this decision.
Councillor Rees.
Thank you. And this one is difficult because I do support the need for agricultural land to support food production. Sometimes that will be large plots, sometimes it will be small plots. But I guess the decision here is around what's the best use. I have to admit I'm sometimes very sympathetic to people that find themselves with little chunks of ALR lands because I was around when the Agricultural Land Commission was created in the early 70s, and it was a rather arbitrary sweep of the pen that just kind of covered everything that wasn't built on in the province practically. And so ever since then, in my practice, I know it was a constant process of taking pieces of land out of the ALR that were never suitable for agriculture in the first place for various different reasons, sometimes soil conditions, etc. So this is a piece that by itself, I get the fact that you can put density farming or density agricultural production on it has been demonstrated. But I take Councillor Blackman-Wolf's point about the highest and best use for this, and it is on transportation routes. It is walkable to a large service center for shopping and so forth. We have talked in this council room about diversity of housing in neighborhoods, and so it possibly lends itself to other forms of housing rather than the larger homes that are just across the street. There are other areas, not necessarily in the ALR, but there are other areas in Squamish that lend themselves to food production, and one of them is actually right adjacent to that property. It's underneath the hydro lines, where you really can't do very much else. And so it's a large swath of land that goes right by there if people are so inclined. I know the Rotary Club has a garden at one point down by the golf course. So there are other opportunities without necessarily saving a piece like this. So I'm inclined not to support the staff recommendation. In saying that, I'm not sure that I'm at a 5-lot subdivision either. I know that's a separate issue, but there might be, that's another decision for me. But nevertheless, I am in favor of being taken out of the ALR and would support a subsequent resolution to that effect.
Councillor Brown?
Yeah, interesting. I like houses with carriage houses on big lots. And I do hear Jason's comments on the density and where it's located, and Councilor Ray's talking about bus routes right across the street. Can you highlight the agricultural in that area, please, again? I mean, the only piece that's agriculture is...
So it's really the existing agriculture.
Well, it's not that whole piece, it's just the
So
little...
this
Not under the hydro.
This portion is in the ALR, but in terms of what they're actually, the agriculture is occurring on this entire piece.
But it's not zoned agriculture.
It's
So-
zoned rural residential, which allows agriculture use.
Yes, but nobody's gonna ask, I guess,
It's under the power lines, so you're not.
it's under the power line.
Yeah, so that whole area
Okay, yeah, okay,
is
sorry,
under
I
the power
didn't
lines.
realize that. Because I think that if we go, I think ALR people are waiting for us to comment on this. It's not a big thing for them, it's just a little tiny piece, and if we say no, they'd say no. If we say yes, they'll say yes. That's my opinion. But, and I don't mind the house and the carriage house next to the church there. So, if I support staff's recommendation, I think we would eventually see a house and a carriage house there, and we most likely wouldn't get ALR. You know, I mean, I don't think that's what the use will be. I think whoever owns that property is gonna say, I'm not putting in a farm anyway, I'll just build a big house, which I like. But I also like what Jason said when he said a little small high-density unit there. So I'm waiting for Pete before I can make.
You're all over the place.
Well, put me on the block. I'm not gonna support this action myself either. I just look at the use of the neighborhood around it, and I agree with some of the comments that have been made. I know the council, we talked about retaining ALR land, but I really don't see this one particular piece as being key to that. And I think if you look at the neighborhood around it, the mixed density that's going on in there, and the neighborhood that's occurring, and may possibly occur to the north even, I think that's what I'd like to see transpire here. I think we'll leave it up to the ALC to have a look at it and make their call.
Councillor Lee.
I think it's important to remember that the Food Policy Council is just getting started. We have new farmers coming to town. They need an opportunity to build a farm land that they can farm. There is better growing opportunity in town than out in the Squamish Valley. That's what the farmers are saying. They can grow more things for longer when they're within the urban boundary of Squamish rather than down in the valley. They are looking for plots like this where they can get certainty. That in residential lands that are not within the LR, people can sell their land and it becomes townhomes or more homes. I think by supporting this motion, we give the Food Policy Council and our new up-and-coming farmers an opportunity to make a better use of this piece of land. It hasn't been on the radar of our community, but that is growing. And I think demand for this type of land will be there if we give it a chance to stay within the ALR.
I'll have one more stab at this. We have such precious little ALR lands. This is one of a more comprehensive block, including the church, which someday may be redeveloped, including the stables to the south. We're essentially creating a scenario whereby we're taking those viabilities off the table if we take this bite out of the ALR in this area. I agree with Karen. I think we're just realizing our potential or opportunity with regard to food production in the community. We have such little ALR. We need to have some conviction with regard to the words we say on the one hand for our policies versus the actions we do on some of our decision making. With that, I will look to council. I'm going to call the question. Yeah, do you have a question?
No, I'm seconding it.
No, it's already been moved and seconded. Yeah. I'll call the question. All those in favor of not supporting, it's a bit of a backwards motion. The recommendation is to not support the application to exclude from ALR. So it's a motion to not support exclusion.
It's the staff recommendation.
Staff recommendation.
Is that the easiest way to say it?
Yes.
To not exclude it from ALR.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll leave it the way it is.
Right.
Yes. Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Race, Councillor Blackman, no. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We are moving on in our agenda to item 8B3, 9B9A3, solid waste bylaw update, outreach and engagement award. Come on, hop along. You're getting better.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Shannon White. I'm the Sustainability Coordinator at the District of Squamish. So I'm here to propose the recommendation around providing the outreach and engagement that will be complementing the work on the solid waste amendment to the bylaw, the solid waste bylaw amendment. Which we have informally spoken of as the organics ban. The solid waste bylaw
amendment is one of the top priorities that was outlined in the zero waste strategy, which was approved by council in the fall last year. And I will be coming back to council next week with further details on what we're looking at in that actual bylaw. So that's not what we're speaking to today or tonight. So what we're looking at is awarding the contract and the work related to providing all the outreach and engagement before the bylaw is enacted or adopted, and then afterwards as well. So I've provided a list of all the kind of different activities that this involves. So it's things like information packs highlighting the upcoming bylaw changes, how businesses and multifamily homes can prepare, as well as presenting to local associations, so the Chamber of Commerce, the BIA, gathering different stakeholders together, strata councils, things like that, as well as then kind of doing broader public engagement. This is happening, this is what you can do, this is how to separate. And then, as well as then kind of creating guides and training tools, kind of train the trainer workshops so that we can train the businesses within the community how to implement the bylaw, but then also to train their employees so that the information keeps on giving, I guess you could say. And then also on-site outreach to multifamily homes. So that's actually speaking about going to the stratas or to the apartment complexes and providing kind of on-site location expertise and information. And then also this work would be working in partnership with Squamish Can, which is the one of the local nonprofits in town, so that they're able to kind of continue that train the trainer workshop on an ongoing basis once this contract is awarded. And so we're proposing that the work is awarded to the Association of Whistler Area Residents for the Environment, or AWARE. And the reason behind why we're proposing awarding it to them is that not only are they a charitable organization and will provide extremely good value for the service that they are proposing, and the revenue will remain within the Sea to Sky corridor. However, they have also worked extremely closely with the resort municipality of Whistler, who's in the exact same stage and phase of their organics ban as we are. Actually, sorry, they're doing the exact same thing. They're ahead of us in where they are. And so AWARE has been working very closely with the RMOW to do everything that we're looking at doing already. And then as well, just to kind of add, is that we did do, we looked at the different groups in the community, and there is no nonprofit to our knowledge, or to staff's knowledge, that has the capacity and experience that we're looking for, in particular with this award and work. And that's it. And this is, the recommendation is that we award the contract to them.
Well, yeah, a few questions. This is, as you mentioned, contrary to our policy about procurement, and we generally would go out to tender or RFP on something like this. So I need to understand why we're not, and usually that's actually part of the motion, is that council sole source the contract and award it to. That's just been our practice, so it's a little confusing.
It's Chris Wickham, Director of Engineering. We did reach out to the other organizations that we felt would be interested, and didn't find any capacity. And so we believe we are within the purchasing policy, and we are asking for a resolution of council to award AWARE.
Sorry, so I just need to understand how you think you're within the purchasing policy.
I guess we didn't go out for a formal RFP, but we did reach out to the other organizations. Our purchasing policy is for an RFP, not a tender, but for an RFP is to reach out to preferably 3 organizations. And this is the organization that was able to do it. Am I confused with the?
Would it
with the
only be
bins?
nonprofit organizations?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, let me confer. I think I'm confused with the other resolution that we have coming forward, which is for the bins. So,
this is a sole source from everything I've understood.
okay, I'm sorry. I got the two crossed in my head. Sorry, we did reach out on the
You're
other one that's
confused
coming
about
soon
it.
in 2 more slides on the next RTC. This is a request for a sole source, which is per our policy. And you're right, we should probably say in the resolution, sole source. It does say in the report to council that this is a sole source per the purchasing policy.
Yeah.
So
We're waiting for the
that would,
requirement to-
yeah, I agree that the resolution itself should probably have the word sole source in it.
Okay, if we can get proper language.
Robin is shaking.
And just one more question, I saw a hand over here. Would this be typical, I'm just confused why we only went to nonprofits. Are there not other organizations that could have done this kind of thing? I mean, we are going to Whistler to do this, would we not? I mean, there must be a gazillion of them, or inland.
There are probably, there are certainly consulting organizations in the Lower Mainland, in the city, who would be interested in the work. Because we are, I was going to say aware of the work, because we are familiar with the work that AWARE is doing in RMOW, and because there's such similarities between the communities and between the programs, we thought it was sort of an obvious fit. And because they're a nonprofit, we felt that we were still protecting the taxpayers' money, I guess. We're getting good value for money, which is really what the purchasing policy is all about, is getting good value for money for the residents of Squamish.
Just wondering about Squamish Can, and if there was Squamish groups that were interested in doing the work, that were contacted and offered the opportunity.
So I did reach out to Squamish Can. And Squamish Can has a couple different bodies underneath it, right? The food policy and then the zero waste action team. And the food policy said no, like that kind of sphere of Squamish Can capacity. I didn't hear an official no from zero waste action team. However, I'm very familiar with the group, and I'm very familiar with their capacity, and I don't believe there is, but I don't want to say official no. We also did reach out to Squamish Rebuild. It's quite out of their scope to say at least, and they did not officially get back to us either, but those are the two groups we did reach out to, kind of looking at what's in the community. And I just wanted to add on that AWARE, although they are based in Whistler, they have done work here in Squamish, so they did run the zero waste booth at our farmers market for several years, like 3 or 4 years ago. So they have been kind of involved in the community and have a sense of what's going on here.
I saw another hand over here.
Thank you. I was just curious, in the budget it says 20,000 has been earmarked. Is that in fact the amount of the contract? That would be the amount?
Yes.
And that's for 1 year?
It's for the 2017 budget.
And the contract is for 1 year?
Yes.
So 2018 it would be a new contract?
Yes. And
new budget.
So our one line item in the first slide was part of their scope will be to train Squamish Can. So by the time we get to 2018, we'll be through the public engagement, hopefully, and have a bylaw passed and be into sort of the training and direct engagement. And at that point, Squamish Can should have the training and the experience to bid as well on an RFP.
Yeah, thanks. That's excellent information to add on to that. What I was worried about is outsourcing our garbage and communication to the Whistler community, giving them money as opposed to building our capacity here. So if it is a specific mandate in the contract, I don't want to see this money leave the community next year. I would like our local community to be treated with the outreach and not support the motion.
Does that mean we're moving the motion? Do you have the wording? Okay, so this is what you're moving, Councillor Chappelle, that District of Squamish waive the purchasing policy requirement for RFP and sole source and award the solid waste bylaw update outreach engagement services to Whistler area residents for environment.
Sounds horrible.
One second.
Seconded by Councillor Weiss. Want to speak to it, or have you already done so?
I think this is an essential tool that the community needs to move solid waste bylaw forward. Education is a huge piece in our garbage. We have to preserve our landfill. It's already at critical expansion. I don't know what we can do next if we don't reduce our garbage. I'm hoping that part of the solid waste strategy includes the biggest part of our landfill is like 35% diapers, and I know that's part of the working force, but I'm just wondering how we can educate the public on that and maybe just the awareness of it when we put people with different strategies. But yeah, I do, I see that staff has done their work on this and asked local groups, and appreciate that Whistler area residents from the environment have done the work at the farmers market, and that if our local groups don't have the capacity to do it, hopefully that training for the next year will build capacity within the community, as well as educate the community so that we can have that contract within our community for next year.
Thanks. I'll speak to it briefly. I'm sure Aware can do this work and do a great job with it. That's not my concern. I do want to make a point about the staff report, and the rationale for sole sourcing is not a rationale for sole sourcing, in my opinion. Just because they're not for profit and they provide good value and they have the experience isn't necessarily a rationale for sole sourcing. You've given some more rationale, not in the report, for going to a sole source, so I can support this. But what's in the report, that's not your fault, is not technically a rationale. You can't use that type of thing. They have experience and they provide good value as a rationale for sole sourcing. Everyone can do that or meet that criteria. So just in the future, we have a purchasing policy for a reason, and so it's really those extenuating circumstances that we sole source. Anybody else? Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Next up is waste reduction at events. Am I on the right one? Yes.
So I'm still here to talk about waste reduction at events. So this report to the council has two pieces to it. So I'll first speak to the zero waste bin sets, and then afterwards I'll speak to the public education at the farmers market. So part of the zero waste strategy is one of the priorities was promoting waste minimization, ongoing education, public involvement, and outreach. And in the zero waste strategy, it highlights that waste diversion at events is very important. So one of the first steps, and this is kind of an initial step to encouraging waste diversion at events, is just providing the infrastructure for local community events to actually separate out their garbage into the different streams. And so at the end of 2016, the district bought 3 different kind of waste diversion bin sets, so it's kind of garbage, compost, recycling, etc., and to be used for community events. And that was purchased through the solid waste community project budget. However, it is impractical for the District of Squamish staff to be managing the bin rentals and logistics associated with that. So we are requesting that council approves the authorization of Squamish Rebuild to kind of manage and host all the logistics associated with these bins that are our property. We did approach 3 different organizations as per our purchasing policy to see if anyone was interested in doing this. And Squamish Rebuild was the only one who expressed interest. The rest declined, and due to capacity or just lack of interest. Staff is proposing that this is a one-year trial, which Squamish Rebuild is very happy about. Kind of come together at the end of this summer, especially because that's when a lot of the events are happening, to discuss is it working for both partners. We are proposing that the rental fees would be going to Squamish Rebuild for the work that they will be doing in managing those bins, which will take up staff time on their end, plus space in their location. We do estimate that it's around $500 of revenue will be redirected to Squamish Rebuild. That's an approximation because we're not sure exactly how many events there will be, and we haven't, or Squamish Rebuild hasn't finalized a price. We've been kind of looking at how much other communities are charging for this service and stuff, so they're still doing a little bit of research. But yes, we believe it'll be around $500. And yeah, that's, so then we have this resolution or recommendation before council to authorize Squamish Rebuild.
Any questions for staff about this?
Comment? I think it's a nice co-op.
Why don't you put the motion forward and you can make the comment. Moved by Councillor Pryor, second by Councillor Elliott. Go ahead.
No, I'm just happy to see Squamish Rebuild mature and age and be successful, and now they're helping us.
And this is different. The last one's a contract. This is a service agreement. This is the difference. Okay, so there's a motion on the floor. Anyone like to speak to this? Yeah, I concur with Councillor Pryor. Squamish Rebuild has really matured and provides a great service for the community, and I'm glad they can help provide more service for us. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Great. Thank you very much.
No problem. I have.
What's that? Oh, yeah, there's two motions, sorry. There's a second motion that the mayor should. Keep going.
So the last
Sorry.
piece of, that's okay. The last piece is that the District of Squamish has been approached by the farmers market to provide education and public engagement around waste diversion at the summer season of farmers markets. And so this would not only be having the bin sets out that Squamish Can has purchased in the past, but also just having someone there to actually engage and talk to people and say, oh no, that popsicle stick can go in compost. Did you know why? Kind of that extra piece which really reinforces behavior change. Squamish Can, who provided the service last year in 2016, is not interested in doing this work in 2017, so that's why the farmers market approached us directly this time. And the funding of it is $1,950, which would come again out of the Squamish Solid Waste Utility Community Projects budget.
Move that as well. Moved by Councillor Schwell, seconded by Councillor Elliott. Yeah.
Is there like kind of a set process that they follow, or is it just every man figure out what they want to do?
So I've, oh, sorry. So I've
just say the first one.
Required that I told them, or in the discussion, I informed them that it would be in the contract that they would need to be trained by Squamish Can, who did it last year, and Squamish Can is in agreement and excited about. So that would be part of the service agreement.
No, but I'm just curious. It's like Squamish Can had a person there.
Mm-hmm.
Farmers Market has people there. Do they have an extra person there?
The cost is, I believe, the cost is to fund somebody to be there.
And train that person
And train
to
that person.
educate them on solid zero waste strategy. Awesome. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. And moving on to 95, 2017 Annual Water Replacement Phase 1 Tender Award. Reminder to Council, this is a tender award, not an RFP.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. My name is Matt Simmons. I'm the district's capital project manager. The first report before you is for our first phase of our 2017 annual water main replacement. This is one of a few phases of projects we've got this year. We've got a fairly aggressive capital plan based on a lot of the grants that we got through the Clean Water and Wastewater Fund. The first project here is a pressure reducing valve station on the corner of Plateau and Westway, which is an interesting thing for me because it was a project that we did on Westway in 2013 that we actually allowed for this connection. So we're always thinking that we'd be having somebody in the future thank us for these things, but we're moving so quickly within the water system that we're thanking ourselves. So there's a number of those that are coming online now, and the cost savings and the impact of our projects allow them to be built faster and with less impact to the community is showing in a shorter time frame than we were anticipating. The next piece of this project is on Depot Road, basically between Peterson and Dogwood Place. It also includes a casing through the rail crossing, which, if you can recall the work that we did on Pemberton, is very tricky and requires permits from CN. Next is from Depot going up Ross to Arrowhead. There's about 200 meters of main that needs to be replaced there as well. And we've got a half a kilometer of upper skyline from Braemar to the Boulevard, which again is another project that we allowed for a future connection, but didn't think that we'd use it, but here we are a few years later. And then there's about 370 meters on the Boulevard from skyline down to Ayr. So this first phase is a fairly aggressive piece, but we're getting the toughest piece out first. We went to tender on this recently. We got 3 responses based on the closing. The tender award is within our capital budget, and it includes contributions from roads and active transportation on some of the projects that we've discussed previously in council recently. It's the first time that we've worked with Gravity Construction out of North Van, but they've come with good references, and we've reviewed their tender submission, and it's complete in all aspects. It was a fully publicly tendered job. And I think part of it is we're just needing to get out of the gate here quickly. There's a lot of this grant money around in BC right now, and we're seeing the impact on consulting engineers, contractors, and suppliers. So we're happy to get this one out early, and we're looking forward to getting this one going right away. One of the things that's happening with phase 2 of this project, which we've talked about recently as well, which is Government Road from Eagle Run up to Deep One around the corner, you can start to see the impact of water main construction on Brackendale this summer. So we've recently arranged with the Brackendale Art Gallery an open house kind of drop in on May 23rd from 6 to 8 p.m. and just provide an opportunity to let people know what the project is and what they can anticipate, because there will be an impact to the community for sure on this one. Our schedule puts us up in the Highlands first and dealing with the section on Depot second, but that'll put us in likely late June for this project. Outside of that, I'd maybe put it over to you, Mayor, for any questions about the project.
Appropriate is there any other infrastructure going in with the water main replacement done in that area as far as cycling?
Yes, so through you, Mayor Heinzman.
Just on that rail crossing is my biggest concern.
Yeah, so the rail crossing itself is a separate this is all part of the Grade Crossing Improvement Program, and we're going to try to get some of that design done, but we're not going to be able to deal with that crossing specifically and making that compliant. That will have to be a separate project. But because of the approach grades of Depot Road and the new guidelines, we ensured that we knew enough about what those grades should be to make sure that we had sufficient cover for the pipe. So we've done some of that design work, and we've already done the assessment. So we can anticipate what that will mean for that area, but that's not currently included in here. The one project out of active transportation is up on the Boulevard between Skyline and Highlands Way South. We talked about that, completing the curb gutter sidewalk and adding a crosswalk across. So that is actually included in this, as well as about 350 meters of bike lane on the south side of Depot that's currently non-existent.
Thanks, that was my question too. It was nice to see Government Road and that extension on bike lanes, and you guys do a great job.
So you said from Eagle Run to Depot?
So
all the way up Government?
Yeah, so that's the second phase. That was the second grant that we just recently got in March, that we came in to fast track the design on. And that one, we're looking to go to tender. We've really gone quickly in the design on that, and we're looking to go to tender on that as early as next week.
When that does go, will you be repaving that whole street of Garland after that? No?
It's not included in this one right now. It's just, we'll just likely be repairing our trench, and we're on the southbound lane typically for most of this job.
Let's stay on topic.
Yeah, well, government road gets a bike lane, or it just gets a trench and with the patch?
Sorry. So as far as this project's concerned, this is not on government road.
Not on
This-
government.
The second phase, and one of the reasons why we're just saying the impact of Brackendale this summer for construction is going to be substantial, because we're going to have two separate enormous contracts going on government road and depot. So, but to answer your question, that the government road job will likely just be paving the trench and the services for the new, for the lots at front.
So we have, that's coming up in the future. We have the tender in front of us, and we can focus on
I just
that.
wonder if council might want to, consider the government road portion, adding a little bit to get the bike lane when we're putting that bike in.
Not so much adding a little bit, because we'd have to amend
No?
we'd have to amend the tender, we'd have to amend our financial, 5-year financial plan by all, would
It
we
doesn't
not?
have to be part of the tender. The pipe is one thing and the bike lane is another. While we're cutting the road up, you might want to put the bike lane in.
Yeah.
So I was just going to say, government road from Eagle Run to Depot has a 1.5 meter shoulder on both sides of the road. So it does already exist. I would agree that the quality of the asphalt there and what exists there is there's definitely some room for improvement, but we're under a lot of pressure to get these grants done, and the grant is specifically for the water main and the surface restoration for the impact of construction.
Thank you. Here's your second. Second by Councillor Elliott, that we award the tender to Gravity Construction in the amount of $1,479,306.40 plus tax, plus net tax. And that the mayor and corporate officer be authorized to execute the agreement.
I just wanted to thank staff for doing the communication and Brackendale our calendar. I think that's a great piece to inform the community on the changes there. So.
Yeah, and I think that's something we've started to do, especially when a neighborhood is impacted so dramatically, so thanks for that. I did also want to give Matt some kudos. I was at a concert at the Art Gallery on the weekend, and John Chinnaborsh came up to me, and he's the fellow who's been talking about some of the issues around Honey Lane and Reed Road and Depot, and he just had nothing but high praise, and thanks to Matt for such a great communication, and you gave him a lot of confidence that we're going to rectify and work with the community to make sure that area is much better in the future. So thanks for that. I'll call the question on the tender. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Moving on, sanitary trenchless repair tender award.
Thank you. So the next report before you is to award the 2017 sanitary rehabilitation trenchless repairs that are the result of the 65 kilometers of cammering, flushing, and inspection that we did last year in the sanitary system. Largely, we're just repairing defects in the system. We're not dealing with life cycle replacement of these mains. With the sanitary master plan coming to its end and integrating the capital plan, which is replacing based on condition and age, this is an enormous input into how we're going to kind of plan out the next 20 years of the replacement of the sanitary in town. For some people that were, in 2013, we worked with Martech and we did 33 locations in downtown and western Brackendale, and we had good success with that. One of the challenges for us typically on open excavations on the sanitary system is that they're very deep. They're largely, a lot of them are under the water table, and they're very expensive to get at. So using these trenchless methods, typically we'll use grout, like little robot kind of machines going down and injecting grout, as well as CIPP liners, which is cured in place pipe liners, which is like a fiberglass resin type sock that gets blown up the pipe. We've had a lot of success with it here in our program. It is a candidate for us looking at the longer term replacement of some of these deep sanitary lines. But we've got some good confidence about the infiltration that we're going to eliminate. And previously in 2013 when we did this, it was noticeable. We could actually measure the improvement of the infiltration in the sanitary system, which is largely driven by the water table in a lot of these areas. So some seasonal fluctuations. Like I mentioned, we've worked with these guys for the second time. The budget for this is within our 2017 capital budget. Upon the closing, it was a full public tender on this. Upon the closing, we did get 2 bids. The one bid was reviewed and was deemed to be material nonconformance to the specifications laid out in the tender. So that tender was rejected. But we do have confidence that the contractor is willing and able and ready to start work with us right now.
Any questions for staff? Anyone like to move the recommendation? Moved by Councillor Elliott, second by Councillor Rice. Call the question. All those in favour? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Final report before you is for the Tantalus Fire Hall, the Hose Tower Demolition Award. We went to council a few months ago to talk about our progress, and one of the things that came out of our design efforts there is that the department would like to see the hose tower gone and not replaced to utilize other real estate on the site. So as part of us continuing the big work package to go out to tender in the near future, we took this opportunity to take care of some of the demolition, which is largely the largest hazard that exists at the fire hall currently, just due to the height of the hose tower and the insufficient foundation that it sits on. As part of that, we issued an invitation to tender to 4 contractors, 2 of them local and 2 of them from Vancouver. Upon the closing of that, the 2 local contractors submitted pricing within our estimate of what we thought that was going to take to come down. Marcor Construction is a local contractor, and I actually worked with them on the first project when I started here, which was the demolition of the hose tower next to the library. So it's kind of interesting that they're coming after the second one. They are keen and understand the importance of taking down a hose tower and ensuring that there's no impact to the existing operations of the fire hall. As far as the environment's concerned with this, we do have hazmat inventories for that building, and there's nothing in this. One of the things that we've identified in our procurement was that diversion to the landfill was important, and one of the things that all the metal that'll come out of this will be recycled. All the concrete block and concrete will be reused, largely at our vertical expansion of the landfill. It's a fairly small amount. It's only about 30 cubic meters, or roughly 4 gravel truckloads worth of concrete. But we do have a way to divert that from the inside of the cell of the landfill, so we should virtually come out of this with almost no waste to this demolition piece. I can't say that for the rest of the project, but certainly this project, this portion, absolutely.
Councillor Kent?
He handily answered my question right there with that last comment.
Any more questions? Someone want to move the motion? Recommend a motion? Moved by Councillor Kent, second by Councillor Elliott. Call the question. All those in favour? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moving on, we have the Affordable Housing RFP Award. I was going to recommend to council that we defer this until next week, as the members of the team that was evaluating the criteria and the proposals aren't here, and I know I have lots of questions. So do you want a motion to defer to next week? Okay. The motion moved by Councillor Kent, second by Councillor Pryor. Any questions? I'll call the question. All those in favour? Opposed? Motion carries. Next up, we have 9B1, BC Rural Dividend Application.
Thank
Oh,
you.
you're all keen to give a report, but I'm happy to move the motion.
Oh, great. Very, very short.
Is there a seconder?
Second.
Second by Councillor Reyes. I think this is a great opportunity. I'm glad you brought it forward, and I hope we're successful. I think it's a great collaboration. Yes?
Maybe you want to read the motion for the public?
Oh, I can do that, yeah. That the District of Squamish authorize the submission of an application to the BC Rural Dividend Program for the implementation of a service skills training program and a local open data initiative as part of its economic action plan 2017-2019, and that council support this project through its duration. And we did talk about this a little bit this afternoon. I don't mean to belittle it. I think it's a great initiative, but I think there's wholehearted support. So I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much, Kate. Well presented. Good job.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Did you really want to present on it?
I mean, no, I'm good. Thank you.
We have some correspondence. There's a recommendation that we staff this. We refer this to the planning staff for consideration during the rezoning public hearing for the letter on the polygon proposal. All right, so you look at them, refer to staff. Moved by Councillor Ray, seconded by Councillor Kent. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. There's also a recommendation that the district of Squamish donate two-month transit passes for the Summer Northern Youth Abroad Program participants in the amount of $80 from council contingency. Moved by Councillor Elliott, seconded by Councillor Race. I met some of these. They send some youth here every year to this program, and I met them last year. They're from very remote Indigenous communities up in the north, and it was just they enjoy and learn and come and live with people in Squamish, and so I'm happy to support this small gesture. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. There's a letter from Karen Clark regarding Center Point development, and there's a recommendation that we refer to the Director of Community Planning and Manager of Bylaw Enforcement and Animal Control follow up. Not necessarily the animal control part, but the bylaw enforcement part. Is that are you moving that, Councillor?
Well, I'd like to just have a comment on it. But
you can. Would you like to move it?
Move it.
Refer to staff?
Yeah, refer to staff, yeah.
Second by Councillor Chappelle. Councillor Clark?
Well, yes, I'll second it.
You've already moved it.
I'll move it, but I just want to, Centerpoint is, this is the neighbor of Centerpoint.
Right beside, yes.
This woman. And, you know, the planning department's not here, but to the planning department, when we do 4- and 5-story developments in residential neighborhoods with little houses beside them, we have to give something to the neighbors. And I remember when this was going in, and I was trying to get the ditches in front of the houses across the street filled in as part of this deal so that parking would be a little better, but there was no support for that. This is a lady right adjacent to the north. I mean, when we do stuff like this, why not go, hey, why don't you build a sixplex on your property? Or hey, here's something that adds value to your property instead of just leaving them out in the cold. You know, we do this, whenever we do a big thing, the property beside it should be given something. And so, I mean, I replied to this lady's letter and sympathized with her and everything.
I think she's got some valid issues, and I think that's why staff needs to follow up to the specifics that are in there.
Yeah.
And address some of the specifics in there.
But we do have the ability of a council and a planning department to add value to their property somehow. Whether it be pave in front of their house or pave in front of the backyard.
We absolutely do.
And we should be doing that when we do these big things beside people's houses, that's all.
I saw a hand flash up. Councillor.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm not sure if I agree with all of Councillor Prior's sentiments, but living in that neighborhood, I have in mind, people have been pretty respectful, but the biggest thing is on Victoria, the parking, there's been no bylaw coming by and enforcing anything. The parking is down a single lane. If there was a fire, we'd be screwed. A fire truck cannot get through there. You can barely get a single vehicle through there. So if anybody had fire on that end, you can't get an ambulance through, can't get fire through. So outside of Karen's house, I noticed that there was gravel. They removed all her parking. There's contractors outside her house every day. It started off amazingly respectful, and then the more it was just left to the contractors to park wherever they want, they literally parked wherever they wanted. And especially on Victoria, that narrow spot. And then meanwhile, bylaws ticketing the laneways and everywhere else, but not the people parking on Victoria.
Well, we walked by there that day, remember the neighbor came out?
Yeah, I know, they're
So-
pissed off.
So, I think we all agree, Ms. Clark has some very valid concerns. I think we can do a facilitation job in making sure the developer and the contractor are ensuring that their impact to the neighborhood is minimized. There's no need to have some of the issues that Ms. Clark is bringing up come to us. So we're looking to staff to help facilitate that conversation and rectify that situation. I'll call the question.
But the safety issues, I just have to say, when there's life safety issues.
We need to fix it, absolutely.
When you can see it because it's right outside district, you need to amend that right away. The bylaw should be enforcing that.
Call the question, absolutely. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. There's 2 correspondences for information. I'll just quickly speak to Art Walk. I think it's great Art Walk's back. Yay, makes me happy. Coming from the tradition of these types of things are all over Quebec and Ontario. I think it's wonderful that we're able to create this sort of cultural experience and promotion of our artists. An opportunity for people to not only share in the art, but participate, sell some product.
Exactly that, but also the fact that they're utilizing spaces that aren't normally utilized for art and bringing art into places that normally doesn't see art.
Yeah.
The pop-up art places. I'm really looking forward to it this year. I'm excited about that.
Yeah, there's also going to be a murals festival and an art walk, and it's going to be a fun time. Motion to receive the correspondence, unless someone wants to talk about the other one. Moved by Councillor Schell, seconded by Councillor Kent. All those in favor, opposed, motion carries. We have meeting minutes for our regular business meeting of May 2nd, our special business meeting of May 2nd, our special business meeting of May 8th. And there's a motion that we approve those minutes. Moved by Councillor Elliott, seconded by Councillor Kent. All those in favor, opposed, motion carries. Is there any business arising from the minutes? Seeing none. Committee minutes and reports. There's a Community Development Standing Committee minutes that they be received for information for May 2nd. I'll move that, second by Councillor Race. All those in favor, opposed, motion carries. From that, there is a committee recommendation, recommended motion that reads that staff bring back policy for consideration to achieve more missing middle housing that unifies the walkable streetscape, that includes duplexes, triplexes, quadruplexes, courtyard apartments, bungalow courts, townhomes, multiplex, and live work within rezoning applications to achieve better integration of mixed income, age, and stage housing within zoning applications to allow for a diversity of housing in all neighborhoods. And that staff develop policy for council to consider to mandate through rezoning and density bonusing, purpose-built market rental, and subsidized rental housing with the goal of integrating within new and existing neighborhoods and to avoid ghettoization. Moved by, I'll move that, seconded by Councillor Elliott. Call the question, all those in favor, opposed, motion carries. Public Arts Select Committee minutes, move that we received for information the minutes, I'll move that, seconded by Councillor Kent. All those in favor, opposed, motion carries. There's a public art motion that the Public Art Select Committee allocate $500 to the Squamish Arts Council for the public art application as presented at the May 3rd, 2017 Public Art Select Committee meeting. You have to know what the actual presentation was and how I can't even remember it. Where's Devin? It's in the minutes. I can't remember off the top of my head. Councillor Race.
Is that already in the budget? Is that, do we have to talk about the source of funds?
No, I think it just needs a ratification from council, does it not? Like it's within the public art budget.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Is that not correct?
It's something that Sydney was talking about.
It is, yeah. Oh, yeah, this is similar to the alternative school, looking for some funding to help with the mural project. The Arts Council is doing a youth programming this summer, and they're also doing a mural project, and so they were just looking for a source of funding to help with paint costs and that type of thing. And the Public Art Committee had sort of set up a program whereby if groups wanted to come and do public art, they could come and ask for small amounts of money to help support the event. So That's all.
On their budget.
Yeah. It's in the public record.
So,
Move that? Did we move that? Moved by Councillor Ray, seconded by Councillor Chappelle. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks for helping me out, Robin. Smoke Plus Park Committee, there's minutes to receive for information from the May 4th meeting. Moved by Councillor Chappelle, seconded by Councillor Kent. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. I did notice that more than half the committee wasn't at the meeting. Are we having trouble achieving quorum there, or was it just an abnormal meeting?
There was only 4 missing from.
Yeah. Anyway, just maybe keep an eye on that, just to make sure we have active participation. We had a few missing from public art too. I just want to make sure we're all cognizant of making sure we have lots of participation on those committees. Advisory Design Panel meeting minutes from May 4th. Move receipt of information.
I'd like to comment on
Moved by
that.
Councillor Pryor, seconded by Councillor Chappelle. Councillor Pryor?
Okay, now, we have a fabulous advisory design panel. All these really smart architects. And we bring a project to them, and they have great comments. And we never get them here in council. We do get the minutes. So Waterfront Landing comes up, 800 to 900 units. They come in and present to us. We all look at it, ooh and ah. 2 days later, they present to the advisory design panel. So I think, well, that's funny. It should have gone to the advisory design panel first and then come to us, because we didn't get the benefit of their comments. So it started going around the room, and first we have questions, and then we have comments. So there's good questions, you know, questions that we didn't think of, that architects would think of, that was like, oh, they're like little eurekas, like, oh yeah, that's a great idea. Oh, you know, I'm thinking, man, we should have had them. So then it goes around to comments at the end, and there was nobody in the room here but me. Were you there, Robin? No, I guess it was just, I'm the only guy. So I'm the only guy that can say this. And so I pretty much want us to watch one particular architect. It comes to him, he looks at the project, and you know, it was kind of mixed. I mean, our council was quite positive with it. And so I know their staff went away, oh, council likes our development. The advisory design panel wasn't as nearly as positive about it. So anyway, then it comes to this one guy, whom I really respect, and he says, well, hang on to your hats. And for 6 minutes, he talks about what could be there, what should be there, and what we're missing. And I'm going like, oh my God, this guy is so right, and none of us heard of him. So I asked today that we get it to play, because it's a 6-minute, but we didn't have the technology at this time to watch it. But I know we're going into second reading, and we all have to watch that, and I prefer we do it and have comments afterwards, because it is hugely important to that development.
So, thank you for that. This is why we have a council member on that committee, so that you are there to bring these things to our attention. So I thank you very much for that. We can view it at any time at our own leisure, of course, and we'll send out the direct link, so you can view it many times if you'd like. Yes?
And I just want to give council some comfort that the comments that were received from ADP at the meeting are being incorporated as best as staff has the ability, as far as it relates to the OCP sub-area plan and the rezoning, into, they'll be highlighted into the bylaw when it comes for second reading, as much as staff were able to put it in, like, you know, that it's adheres
Just
to
comment
the.
on that,
Yeah, I'll go back to Ted. I got your hand.
you know, and you know, we all realize with minutes, you know, like we sit in meetings and then you read the minutes of the meetings. It's like a guy goes on for 5 minutes about something, and staff showed, or Councilor so-and-so showed concerns, and it was like, you know, I mean, this guy had some really moving ideas. Anyway,
And that's why we record
Yeah.
them, and that's why we have you on
But
the
I'm
committee.
hoping that we're gonna, like, didn't you say that we could get it in a meeting?
We'll look at the, yeah.
And we'll watch it and just have a brief discussion? I mean, we could watch the whole thing, but one guy nailed it, in my opinion, and I think it's really important before we start going to second reading that we hear that. I emailed Lauren, who I'm sure Lauren invited all of us to that thing, right, Lauren Siegel? And so I followed up with an email to him saying, you should watch that, Lauren, because even your guys are missing the boat on this.
And we'll get the time so people can look at it and go, but thank you, Councillor Frye, that's really valuable. Councillor Schwab.
I have heard out in the public that the ADP ripped it to pieces. And I've read the minutes, watched the piece, and I feel horrible that I missed. Like it is, you look at this place and this piece of land that is our waterfront, and it's gone through first reading and it's gonna go out to the public like that, it's gonna go out to the public. They have a public meeting on it, like that. And they pretty much, gone to design a few times. But, some of the comments, like, this could be our gas town, and missing density and putting social housing all in one end in one little place, not mixing density, like, everything that's wrong in urban planning. And, passing it through first reading, like it was. If the changes that are to be taken seriously from the ADP, it would have to go for an entire redesign. And I am absolutely for that.
Yeah.
The biggest comment was lack of commercial space, which is huge.
So I think we forget what the tool of first reading is.
Yeah.
And we've gotten in the habit of just doing first reading, second reading, but the tool of first reading, introduce it so that it can have the public comment. If it has to be repealed because there are so many changes, that's the process.
Yeah, exactly.
If there are some minor tweaks and we can go to second reading and then present, but that's the purpose of the first reading, is to go out and
Yeah.
actually have something you're debating.
May I respond to that?
So, yeah.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
But if it's not out in the public, to Ted's point, the ADP's comments are critical, and a lot of the times the public doesn't have access to that, or the comments are taken by staff and put in little places, like, these little design things that, according to the ADP, this needs to go back for a complete redesign. They need to rethink the whole thing. So, and I would agree with the comments, there's so much wrong with the plan, having housing right against the ocean front. And anyhow, the comments are there for the public to read. I'll post it as well.
Yeah.
It should be, it'd be great if the video, if that 6-minute clip
We'll get that
is
sent to
available
everybody.
to the public as well.
Councillor Buckingham.
Well, just to put in a little perspective though, in terms of, we also have to be cognizant of what the terms of reference is for the ADP, recognizing that these folks are not elected by the people of Squamish to serve the interests. They're elected by council and selected through their professional organizations to offer a review of a project, particularly in terms of design. However, when you start talking about things like, land use decisions and things like that, I think that's encroachment. I wouldn't necessarily expect comment from a design panel on that. I don't know. I don't really have a problem with the way, again, you have to have it go through first reading to have it go to ADP, do you not?
Well,
Is that a requirement?
and just to clarify, ADP we generally use for development permits. Only in extenuating circumstances do we tap into that brain trust to comment on big projects from a rezoning point of view.
And
So I mean, typically it's DP level analysis by the ADP, but we have on occasion brought in big projects that we want to get their feedback on.
yeah, and just to conclude on that, I mean, we also need to recognize too that a significant number of the membership, expressly so, are from outside Squamish. So they may not be as familiar with the challenges that we're grappling with, and I don't know, I'm a little bit shocked that this has come up in this manner.
Yeah, well, I think it's valuable for us to. I don't think we utilize the ADP as much as we could for feedback. They don't make decisions; they provide feedback. We listen to their feedback, and we make the decision.
Yeah, I mean, I understand. Well, I don't understand anybody that can give you good advice you should take. I mean, because the guy comes from the city doesn't mean anything, except he's got maybe more worldly experience than we do. I would certainly rather have the professionals at AVP advise me. Like I say, when it went around the room to us, we all thought it was quite nice. Me included. Oh, that's great, I love the bridge, let's get the bridge sooner.
That's actually not where the conversation went. There was critique as well.
Well, nothing to like what I heard.
No, probably not.
And so that's the whole idea, having the ADP. Otherwise, I mean, if we're just having people come up and say, well, we'd rather you go orange than blue. I should say orange or green. But,
Okay.
I mean, they're good and it's worth it.
Thank you. Did we move this? We haven't voted though. All those.
We are going to watch it.
We are going to bring that forward. All those in favor, opposed, motion carries. Finance and Audit Select Committee that we received the minutes from May 8th, moved by Councillor as amended.
We have some of the minutes.
Oh, we have questions? I didn't see that. Do I have it? Mm-hmm. I haven't seen what the corrected is.
They're not bad.
No.
They're kind of through off.
What are the corrections? Are they changes in the meaning? What are the changes?
There was a clarification around Doug's comments about conversation, this is on the third page, third bullet down, conversation took place around the start of the budget process and how revenue increase could be done differently. So there was just some clarity provided there. The sentence that was there before didn't really make sense. There was something around changing the word revise to review. So there were just some minor grammatical changes also.
Make sure we get those highlighted next time, just so we can easily go in and understand if there's a meaning change to what the minutes have previously said.
That one was a little bit.
Do you want me to just tell you what the changes are?
I just want it to be evident for council. Are there any substantive meaning changes within the minute?
So the word revised versus reviewed was key because the community charter doesn't talk to early release of funds. So it was just that did substantially change the meaning of the sentence. We also, one of the other key ones was there was a statement, I think there was general council discussion around some concepts, and one of the statements said that we not borrow money when reserves available. That had been in kind of an out of context conversation, so we removed that and just talked about general discussion that council had about reserves uses. Just because sometimes when statements are said, if they're taken verbatim into the meetings, it sounds like a decision was made.
Yeah, okay.
So those were the types of changes that we just cleaned up.
Thank you. So we've moved by Councillor Elliott, seconded by Councillor Pryor on the corrected minutes. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Council and staff announcements. Do you have that or do you have that? Here it is. No, that's not. You said you were going to hold on to it.
I have it.
Thank you. No, in-camera announcement. Thank you. So just announcing that we have reappointed myself, Fran Solar, Toby Jackson, Sydney Lyons, Catherine Atkinson to the Select Committee for Public Art for a 2-year term. And there are other positions available, and those are out in the community. We're actually actively receiving submissions. It's a fun committee. It's awesome. Put your name forward. Moving on. We don't have any unscheduled public attendance. Open question period for clarification purposes. You're good?
Good.
The floor is yours. Council or staff announcements. I have this somewhere. Where did my list? Sorry. Anybody? I've got a few. Just wanted to speak to the House on Community Forum. I know Councillor Chappelle was there too. Nope, that was a different thing. Scratch that. House on Community Forum, Councillor Elliott was there. It was held in Lions Bay. I think every time I'm amazed at how many people show up to that, and really it's become a very collaborative forum for people around Howe Sound to bring everyone up to date on their initiatives, talk about some ideas and things that are happening. There's a few initiatives that are being worked on through the forum. One is natural assets that Gibson's is working on, has been working on for a long time, and so they're constantly bringing those issues forward. The Ocean Watch, there was quite a bit of discussion about the Ocean Watch plan and actions that came out of that. And what we're proposing that will come to council in the near future is that local governments in and around Howe Sound, through sort of the House on Forum umbrella, strike up a bit of a task force to go over the actions within the plan with the Vancouver Aquarium Research Institute, Corey, something, Ocean Research, Center for Ocean Research, something rather, to go through these and actually sort of ground truth some of these action plans in marine policies, planning, OCPs, some of the stuff that we're working on, harbor policies, derelict vessels, and actually start to see where we can actually implement some of these actions through our own policy work. So that'll come to council. There's no money with that. It's simply that we appoint a staff and elected person to sit on that task force for 6 months.
So,
That,
just a comment on it?
yeah, it's going to come back to council because there's going to be a motion for us to consider.
That'll help with our marine strategy.
Exactly, yeah. Do you want to comment a little bit on the House on Community Forum? And you don't have
I think you covered it. The only other thing is the province's cumulative effects study for Howe Sound. We may actually see some data this year, which is great news.
They are.
It's a long road,
hurtling along,
but I'm pretty confident by the next Howe Sound Forum we might actually see some data from that. It's good news.
Also attended the Sea to Sky Community Services Gala up at the up on the gondola. I guess a week and a half ago now. It was a great night. Somehow the magician found underwear in my goddaughter's purse. I'm not sure how that happened, but that was another story altogether. And condoms with his own face on it. I don't know how that happened either. But I had to show that. Great event. I think they raised tons of money. I know Councillor Chappelle was there. It's amazing. The events that go on at the gondola are always fantastic. So did you want to add to that? Or?
It's still in support of Centrepoint.
Yeah.
And they raised quite a lot of money, and One Ocean's donated a massive prize for the cruise, which was
Tony Rainbow won.
I know, exactly, Tony Rainbow won. But local company support for that event is spectacular.
Yeah, they are so generous. They are such incredible, valuable community citizens. They put forward these multi-$1,000 prizes every time. They do a remarkable job.
Yes, ecotourism.
People were out dancing in the frigid hailstorm of cold.
On the bridge.
It was awesome. Hike for Hospice was last Sunday. Again, a great event, nice turnout, beautiful day. I think Hospice is just, they're a growing concern, and they're doing such a phenomenal job really getting this issue and making it impossible to say no to them. They've been doing a fantastic job. Councillor Kent was there to that. I was on the Commodore's boat during the Yacht Club Sail Past opening of the boating season this weekend. I have to give Commodore Dwayne a bit of a hard time because we went to anchor the boat so that all the fleet, or whatever they call it, could come in and salute the Commodore, and he put the anchor down, but we didn't quite anchor. And then the motor on his anchor burnt out. See, I'm doing this in public to raise him a little bit. And so we just kind of drifted, so the sail pass just kept moving and moving and moving closer to the west side as we hung this 150-foot long. And then the motor didn't work, and so the two of them had to actually hand over hand lift up chain, it's a big boat too, chain like this and an anchor for 150 feet. They were ready for a drink after that. And those are my announcements. I did want to actually say, I was at the Breckenville out there on the weekend, and Scott Verbeek, who's a local talent, he and his group band were there. It was fantastic. Next week is, or 2 weeks from now, is Michael Kilby, another homegrown, talented Squamish kid at Breckenville. We just have such talented kids doing amazing stuff out in the music world. Susan, here.
To add to that, on Saturday night I attended the Sam Jam, which is a sit and sketch there's a bunch of community stuff on Saturday night. I'm trying to remember what Thursday of the month it is, whatever Thursday was Saturday of the month that is. It's once a month on Saturday. You can look it up on Facebook, but it's an amazing, I can't believe the talent. There can sometimes be 10 musicians up on stage, but the quality of musicians in this community. So you can come and you can buy wine and sit and you can sketch. And so you can sketch while you're listening to local musicians. And just the amount of people that show up and the positive energy that's all supported by a music school in the community is absolutely incredible.
Just fair warning, I bought an accordion. So
all that fact.
That's really. I'm bringing the accordion back.
I did not buy an accordion. So one, just kudos to staff for the launch of the OCP discussion draft and the insert that went into the Squamish Chief. I know Sarah McJanet was at the event at Brennan Park on Saturday. What's it called? Squamish Can.
Music Fair.
Music Fair, thank you. She was there, people were stopping to chat with her. She had copies of the executive summary there. Our plotter wasn't working, so she didn't have her big sign, but that's coming, so kudos to everyone who worked on that. I think you have a mayor's breakfast coming.
I have a whole list I'm going to go through. I'm not finished.
All right. I didn't think you could be, but Patty and I were at Lower Mainland Local Government Association last week in Harrison Hot Springs, and I just wanted to let council know that all three of our resolutions that we put forward are going to UBCM. Two were in the consensus agenda, which was great. We didn't have to speak to them, and the third one was a no-brainer. We got unanimous support from the delegates at the conference, so we look forward to supporting those motions when we get to UBCM in September.
And I would like to introduce you to the latest LMLGA board member, Councillor Karen Elliott, who was voted in. There was actually elections galore for second vice president, first vice president, second vice president, and double the amount of members at large. And Councillor Elliott was elected in, so that is fantastic. Congratulations. I was on that board for 6 years, and it's a really interesting place to sort of really dig into policy a little bit more and actually start to plan these conferences and these workshops for local officials to learn about stuff. So congratulations. So I have a few more things. I do have a mayor's breakfast on Thursday at the Squamish Public Library. It's about economic development. Our EDO is going to be there to sort of outline the action plan and generate some discussion about that draft. So that is 7:45 a.m. till 9, the Squamish Public Library. That's in 2 days from now. That's May 18th. Local Government Awareness Week, of course, is this week, and next week, May 22nd to May 28th. Robin's keeping me on track. Yeah, there's an online quiz, and there's your chance for win a family pass to Brennan Park. There's Mayor for a Day, which is happening next Friday. This Friday. The submissions were fantastic. We have one mayor and 2 deputies that we're going to take around. The mayor for the day, I mean, she did a poster, she did a song. She's from the Waldorf School. I can't remember her name off the top of my head. But fantastic submissions. There was another one from the Cultural Journey School up at Stiwamis. Again, another really fabulous video. And then we had a younger grade 3 student from Squamish Elementary School that talked about how she just wanted everyone to get outdoors so they can be healthier. And so those were our three winners. We had quite a few submissions. Yeah, I just love going through them. They're so fantastic. If you want to see them, Terry's got them all. And there's other, then we have our OCP discussion draft deep dive, which is 24th next week. That is Thursday or Wednesday? Wednesday, 6 to 9 p.m. at Brennan Park Rec Center. And that's, as well as the stuff that Councillor Elliott was talking about, our pop-up, the stuff online, the survey online, the insert in the chief. This is sort of the big community event where people can come. As discussed in committee, depending on sort of where we are, we might have a second event, but currently this is the only one scheduled. And that is on May 24th. May 25th, we have Local Government Awareness Week. No, Public Works. Yeah, no, it's part of the Public Works Open House, and that's May 25th from 1:30 to 3 o'clock. So come to the Public Works Yard and learn about all stuff Public Works. They'll let you climb on vehicles, well, touch them at least. And the wastewater treatment plant and how we work our fire hydrants. And that's it. And do we have a meeting now before?
We have just next Tuesday, May 23rd, committee of the whole.
Yeah, and okay.
I'm glad you guys go to that community forum. Thanks for that. The OCP video is excellent. And I think Sarah, our planner, should be a newscaster.
She's good at it.
I mean, I watch a lot of news. And when she came on, I thought, oh my God, that girl is perfect. I think she missed her calling, really.
No, she's not allowed to not be a planner.
Yeah, and anyway, I haven't had a chance to tell her that, but it's really, really good.
Good.
And so, the highlight of my week was a meeting with Chris and the forestry guys. And Chris and Neil actually got all the forestry guys together in one meeting. And I'll let him later tell you when the time's right, but it was amazing. It was amazing. To have all those guys that are just like a bunch of big kids, in there. It was really something.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. That is it for council staff announcements. Motion to terminate. Moved by Councillor Grace, seconded by Councillor Pryor. All those in favor, opposed, motion carries. Thank you very much.